Tale of the Heike Monogatari, Volume 3. Volume 3. Chapter 1. The Letter of Release. On the first day of the new year of the period, Jisho, the ceremony of New Year greeting took place in the palace of the retired emperor, and on the fourth day the emperor himself proceeded thither in state. These ceremonies did not depart in any way from the usual precedent, but as in the summer of the preceding year the Shin, Dainagan Narachika, no, Kaio and other of his retainers had been banished or executed, the retired emperor still felt much resentment and could not give himself to affairs of state with a quiet mind, and was in an unsettled condition about things in general. Kiyomori Nudo also, since the revelations of Tada Kurando Yukitsuna, felt uneasy about the and though outwardly appearing unaffected, beneath his apparent calmness he took precautions and wore always a cynical smile. On the seventh day, a comet appeared in the eastern quarter that is called in China Shiyuki, JJJ, of evil omen. It is also called Sekiki. On the 18th day, its light increased. Kiyomori daughter Ken Rei Mon-in, who at this time bore the title of Chugu or second consort of the emperor, falling ill, there was lamentation both at court and throughout the country. In all the temples the holy sutras were recited, and envoys were sent to all the shrines. Divination was performed, and the physicians concocted their medicines, using all the resources of their art, both exoteric and esoteric, but still, the sickness did not pass away. Then she was found to be pregnant. The emperor was now 18 years old, and the Chugu 22, and so far neither son nor daughter had been born to his majesty, so that if a son should how be born to the Chugu, it would indeed be fortunate. The Heth-e-K rejoiced loudly together, declaring that a son would surely be born, and other noble families also, seeing how fortune now favored the Heth-e-K, did not doubt that so it would turn out. When she was decided to be pregnant, the Nudo, summoning all the priests of high rank and saintly reputation, bade them use all their knowledge both open and secret in bringing his star before the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and praying with all fervor that a son might be born. On the first day of the 6th month was held the ceremony of assuming the belt of pregnancy, and Kaku, Hoshino, the Lord Abbot of Ninnaji, hastened to the palace with the Kujaku Sutra JJJ and performed the incantation ceremony of the Shingon sect. The Tendai Zashu Kakukai, Hoshino, and the Lord Abbot of Midara, Enke, Hoshino also came up and recited the prayers for obtaining a male heir. Now as the months passed, the Chugu suffered more and more severely, just as was the case with the Lady Rai J3I in Han, whose one smile contained 100 charms. The illness of Shou, Yo, Den too was of a like nature. Yo Kai, Hai in China also was said to have suffered more and more through the 3 seasons, as the branch of blossoming pear J4I held the spring rain, as the lotus blossom withered, and as the dew fell heavy on the Amanishi. Considering the season of this illness, it seemed likely that some evil influences might be the cause, and on inquiring by divination by means of a medium from Fudomayo, it was declared to be owing to evil spirits, especially those of Sanuki, no, in Uji no, Akusafu Yorinaga, the departed spirit of the Shin Dainagan Narachika, no, Kaio, the evil spirit of Seiko Hoshi, and the living spirits of the exiles of Kikegashima. So in order to placate both the living and the departed spirits, first of all Sanuki no, In was given back his former title of Sudoku Tenno, and Uji no, Akusafu was raised posthumously in rank and office, being made Dajo Daijin of the upper first rank. Shaneki Korkata was appointed imperial envoy to proclaim these things. Now the tomb of Uji, no, Akusafu was at Gassen Mai in Haniano in the village of Kawakami in the district of Su, no, Kami in Yamato, and as in the autumn of Hojin it had been dug up and the body thrown out on the roadside. Since then the grass had overgrown it more every year. How joyful must his departed spirit have been when the imperial envoy arrived and read his message. Then the deposed crown Prince Sagura was given the title of Pseudo-Tenno, and thus Princess Igami was restored to the rank of Empress. All this was done to appease their angry spirits, for from ancient times, angry spirits have been considered very terrible. The madness of Rei, Zai, In, and the deposition of the retired Emperor Kwazan were said to be owing to the angry spirit of Monogatari. No, Mimbu no, Kaio. There was also the matter of the eye disease of the retired Emperor Sanjo. It was said to have been due to the spirit of Kwanzan, the imperial chaplain. Surely they too should be recalled, replied Shijimori, for if one of them be left behind it will be an evil deed. That may be so with Vasiori, but as for Shunquin, he is a fellow who rose through my recommendation, and this is the man who, though he had other places besides, held meetings at his villa at Shishi, God Tani on Higashiyama for his audacious designs against me. Him I will certainly not pardon. So Shijimori returned, and calling his uncle, the Seisho, told him that the Shosho would be pardoned, that he might set his mind at rest. The Seisho, without waiting to hear more, clasped his hands together and wept with joy. Ah, how pitiable it was when he went into exile to see his wistful eyes full of tears whenever he looked at me, wondering how it was I could not obtain his pardon. Indeed, so you must have felt, replied Shijimori, for a child is dear to anyone. I will see further to the matter, and he went out. Thus it was settled that the exiles of Kikegashima should be brought back again, and the Nudo issued the letter of pardon. An envoy was entrusted with this, and immediately left Kyoto. The Seisho, in his joy, sent a messenger of his own to accompany the official envoy. Though they made haste both by night and day, since the sea will yield to none, and they must brave the waves and wind, though they left Kyoto during the last decade of the 7th month, it was not until about the 20th day of the 9th month that they reached Kikegashima. Chapter 2. Stamping of the feet. The envoy was Tanziman, no Jomariasu. Quickly disembarking from the Shin, he called with a loud voice on Hai Hangwin Yasuri Nudo and Tamba, no, Shosho exiled in this place. Now the two were away as usual praying before their Kumano shrine. Only Shunquin was there, and he, hearing them, at first thought it could only be a dream or that he was being deceived by demons or evil spirits. Then wondering if it might possibly be real, he hurried along so flurried that he fell as he ran, and so presented himself before the envoy crying out that he was the exiled Shunquin. Then the envoy produced from a bag that his servant carried the letter of pardon which the Nudo had sent, and Shunquin opened and read thus: The crime for which exile was ordered is pardoned, and the persons herein mentioned may return to the capital. In connection with the prayers for the safe delivery of the Chugu, a special pardon has been granted. The exiles of Kikegashima, Shosho, Naritsun, and Yasuyori Hoshi are pardoned. This only was written, and there was no word of Shunquin. Thinking that perhaps it was written on the envelope, he looked, but there was nothing there also. He read it from the beginning to the end, and from the end to the beginning, but 2 persons only were mentioned. There was nothing said of 3. Then the Shosho and Yasuyori appeared, and each reading it in turn. Verily it was only they 2 whose names stood written, and there was nothing of anyone besides. It all seemed indeed a dream, and when they thought it a dream, it was a reality. When they thought of it as a reality, it was even as a dream. Beside this, there were many letters for the 2 from Kyoto, but for Shunquin Sazu, there was nothing at all. It seemed that all his friends and connections had disappeared from the capital. Ah, he cried, the 3 of us were exiled for the same offense, and to the same place. How then is it that 2 only are granted, a pardon, and I only am left out? Is it that I have been forgotten by the Heth, E.K., or is it a mistake in the letter, or is there some other reason? He looked up to heaven and cast himself down to the earth, weeping and lamenting, but all in vain. Indeed, that is so, replied the Shosho. And when we witness your anguish, all our joy at returning is taken away, and we feel as though we wish to stay with you. But as to taking you with us in this ship, though we greatly wish to do so, the envoy will not permit it at all, and if it were found out that without permission 3 of us had left the island, it would be indeed a serious thing. But though they spoke many consoling words, yet Shunquin would not be comforted, and when the ship made to put off again, he tried to embark in it, and falling off jumped up again with the madness of despair. The Shosho left him his mattresses as a memento, and Yasyori a part of the Holy Sutras. When they came to cast off the hawser and put the ship off, the Sazu, seizing hold of it, was dragged out up to his loins and then up to his armpits, following after them as long as he could keep his foothold in the water and entreating them. "Comrades, how can you thus abandon me to my fate? Where's your former fellow feeling fled? Since there is no pardon for me, I cannot go to Kyoto, but at least take me with you to Kyushu." But the envoy from Kyoto would not give permission, and they pushed away his hands as he clutched the vessel and at last rowed away, while Shunquin, giving himself up to despair, flung himself down p. 116 on the beach and stamped his feet on the sand like a little child that has lost its nurse or mother. "Take me with you, one, let me go with you," he shrieked and cried, but it was all of no avail, and soon, as the ship rowed away, nothing was left but the white waves. The ship was not yet so far distant, but his eyes were blinded with tears so that he could not see it. Then, running up to a high place, he kept on calling to mind the pathetic story of how in former days Matsura, no, Seoheim JCJ, waved her long sleeves, calling back the Chinese ship that bore away Otomo Seidhiko. Thus the ship rowed away till it was seen no more, and though the sun set, Shunquin did not return to his poor hut, but spent the night lying where he was wetted by the spray and dew. The Shosho, being a man full of pity, when he returned did everything he could for him, and indeed grieved that he had not drowned himself on that shore. Thus we can understand the grief of So, Rai, and Soku, Rai/6, of old when they were abandoned on Kaiganiyama. Chapter 3. The August Lying In. Thus the 2 exiles left Kikegashima and came to Case in Heian. And since the messenger whom the Seisho sent urged them not to proceed to Kyoto that year, as the weather was rough and the passage dangerous, but to wait till spring, the Shosho spent the rest of that year in Case. Now from the hour of the tiger 4 a.m., on the 12th day of the 11th month of the same year, the Chugu began to be in travail, and Rokuhara and all the capital were in an uproar. The place of lying in was the Ikedono M mansion at Rokuhara, and the O himself made an august visit of ceremony. After him, all the courtiers 9i from the Kwampaku and Dajidajan downwards, everyone who could be considered anyone at all, and everyone without exception who held emolument or office and hoped for place and promotion in future, came and presented themselves at Rokuhara. When we refer to former cases of the lying, in of consorts and empresses, there was always a great pardon. On the first day of the 9th month of the 2nd year of Deiji, when Tai, Ken, Mon, in Ihu was brought to bed, a great pardon was proclaimed, and on this occasion things were done according to that precedent, and a very extensive pardon was issued, so that among those guilty of serious offenses, Shunquin Sazu was unhappily the only one who did of share in it. A vow was made that there should be an imperial progress of the Empress and Crown Prince to the shrines of Hachiman, Hirano and Ohirano, if the birth was easy and a prince was born. This vow Senjin Hoin respectfully heard. We speak of it with reverence. Prayer was also made at 20 shrines of the kami beginning with Ise Daimyojin, and the sutras were read at the temples of Tadeji and Kafukuji, besides 16 others, those who read the sutras being chosen officials among those who served the shrines. Retainers wearing karajinu of ornamented brocade and girt with swords walked in procession, carrying various sacred vessels and the imperial sword and the imperial vesture, crossing over from the Higashi Dai to the southern court and going forth from the middle gate. A most auspicious and beautiful scene. Kamatsu Dono, as was natural to his calm and unmoved nature, came long after the others with his eldest son gone, Suk Shosho Kormori, p. 118, and many nobles of lesser rank in a procession of cars bringing presents. 40 changes of garments of various kinds, 7 silver-ornamented swords borne upon large trays, and 12 horses. This was according to the precedent of the Kwampaku Fujiwara Michinaga, who sent horses when his daughter Jodo, Mon, consort of Ikijo Tenno, was brought to bed in the era Kwenko. Shijimori was the elder brother of the Chugu, and since his relation was especially paternal, there was reason why he should send these horses. Gojo no Dainagan Kunitsuna no Kaio also sent 2 horses, and people wondered if this was because of his great desire for a prince to be born or because of his great virtue. Moreover, horses were presented to 70 shrines from Ise, even to Itsukashima and Aki, and very many sets of decorations for the horses in the imperial stables. The Lord Abbot of Ninigi, Kekuho Shino, read the Kyujaku Sutra, while the Tendai Zashu Kekuho Shino chanted the Sutra of the 7 Buddhas. NL, the Lord Abbot of Miyadera, Nkei Shino, chanted the Sutra of Kongo Doji, beside which Gadekagyuzo, 12. The 6 Kwanin, 13I the Ikaji Kinrin Gaden Sutra 14I, Rokuji Karin, 15I Hachiji Manju, 16I and the Fujin 17. Of long life were all invoked and recited from beginning to end. The smoke of incense filled the whole palace, and the sound of bells echoed to heaven, while the sonorous chanting of the sutras made men's hair stand up. Whatever evil spirits there might be, and in whatever direction they might turn, they were put to flight. Then too a life-size statue of Yakushi Nyorai and the 5 wondrous kings 180, one was begun for the chapel of Buddha. Now though all these things were done and the pains came continually upon the Chugu, yet she was not quickly delivered, and the Nudo and the no Dono his consort, pressing their hands to their breasts in perplexity, continually ejaculated, "What is to be done?" All the while the diviners, the 2 Sojo, Hakaku and Sho, Shunke Hoin, and the 2 Sazu, Kozan and Jissen, were chanting the sutras and incessantly telling their rosaries and praying, invoking the 3 treasures of their temples and all their ancient and venerated statues and books and holy pictures. Indeed, it was a most blessed sight. And amid all this sanctification, the Ho-Oh, who was just at this time engaged in purification ceremonies preparatory to making a pilgrimage to Kumano, sat in a chamber near the brocade curtain behind which the Chugu was, and recited the Sutra of Kwanin of the 1,000 Hands. Now at this moment a change came. Though the holy mediums who were wildly dancing went into trance, for some time they were silent. "Ah," quoth the Ho, "oh, whatever evil spirit there may be, how can it come near when I am present?" Beside which all these hostile influences have been granted our imperial benevolence and restored to mankind, and even though they are not grateful, yet how can they now hinder us? Let them quickly be put to flight. When women have difficult labor and there is some obstacle hindering them, however troublesome and difficult it may be, if a mighty spell be chanted earnestly, then the demon will depart and the birth become easy and successful. So they all applied themselves diligently to their crystal rosaries, with the result that not only was the imperial consort safely delivered, but a prince was born. The Ho-Oh was the first to offer his congratulations. Then the Kwampaku Matsudono and the Dajo Daijin, and all the courtiers below him, and all the assistants and acolytes, the chief astrologers, chief physicians, and all the diviners high and low, shouted aloud their joy in concert, so that the sound reverberated even to without the gates, and did not subside for some while. The Nudo too, in the excess of his joy, lifted up his voice and wept. These were tears of joy indeed. Kamatsu Dono immediately hurried to the palace of the Chugu, bringing 99 mon in coin to place beside the pillow of the baby prince, saying, "Heaven is father and earth is mother. May your life be as long as that of 2 Ho, Saku, and Hoshi Figgle. May your mind be as that of 10 Sho, Ko, Daijin." And taking a bow of mulberry and 6 arrows of Yamogi, ball he shot them toward heaven and earth and the 4 quarters of the world. Chapter 3. The Visit of the Courtiers. The wife of the former Yudeisho Munamori had been chosen as the milk nurse for the child. But as she had died in labor on the 7th month, the wife of Taira Dainagan Takatada, no, Kaio was appointed in succession, and she was afterwards known by the title of Satsu no Suk. After a while the O made his August return journey to his palace, and when his car came to the gate of Rokuhara to receive him, the Nudo, in an excess of joy, offered 1,000 pieces of gold and 2,000 ryo in weight of Fuji cotton as a present. And this was surprising. People and they said it was not fitting. There were many things, too, that people thought laughable in the lying in of the Chugo. But by mistake, it vast rolled down the north side 22L, whereat there was a great uproar, and it was brought up again and rolled down once more in the Roper manner. This was an ill-omened event, in the opinion of host people. What appeared ridiculous was the flurry and agitation of the lay priest chancellor, in contrast to the conduct of Shijimori, which was much admired. Much to be regretted was it that the former Yudeisho Munamori, no, Kaio, having lost his much-beloved wife, resigned both his offices of Dainagan and Teisho and retired into seclusion. How happy had it been if both elder and younger brothers had been there. Then came 7 astrologers to perform 1,000 exorcisms, and among them was an old man named Kamen no Kami Takiharu. He was a man of small property and office, and as so many people came thronging there like the bamboo shoots that stand thick together, yea, even like rice sprouts, flax, bamboos, and reeds, he cried out, "I am an official. Make way," and pressing through the midst of the crowd, what a sight he presented. Having trodden off his right shoe, he was resting for a moment when his headdress also got knocked off, and at such a time to see a dignified old man in ceremonial court costume, with his hair in disorder, pacing along, was more than the younger courtiers were able to endure, and they burst forth into uncontrollable mirth. For the astrologers say that their peculiar gait must be most punctiliously observed. A strange thing, too, was that he knew nothing about it, all at the time, though afterwards, when he came to think about it, he remembered everything. Now, at the time of the August lying, in the following notables visited Rokuhara: Deiji Chikanabu, Shinsami Senkyo, and T33 others. Except the Yudebin, they wore Naoshi. Among those that did not come were the former Dajo Daijin Kwazin, in Tadamasako, Amiya, no Dainagan Takasu no Kaio, and about 10 others of lesser rank. Some time afterwards wearing hoi. These went to visit the lay priest chancellor his mansion at Nishi Hachijo. Chapter 5. Building of a Great Pagoda. Now, as the result of the great efficacy of their prayers, rewards were given to the various temples. The eastern temple of Ninnaji was repaired. Afterwards, 7 days' prayer was ordered to be made, beside the reading of the law of Daijin and the ceremony of Kwancho or baptism. Enryo Hojin was raised to be Hoin, while the imperial Zashu was given the 2nd rank of princes of the blood, and allowed the privilege of proceeding to court in an ox car. As Ninnaji resented this, Kakusei Sazu was raised to the rank of Hoin, besides which other rewards were bestowed too numerous to mention. After some time had elapsed, the Chugu returned from Rokuhara to the palace. Since the daughter of the lay priest chancellor had become imperial consort, monthly pilgrimages had quickly been begun to Itsukashima the greatly venerated, to pray that a prince might be born to her, and that he should soon ascend the throne in order that the Nudo and his wife might become imperial grandparents, and the Chugu had soon become pregnant and been safely delivered of a prince to their great joy. Now the time that the Hesse family began to revere the shrine of Itsukashima in Aki was when Kiyomori only held the office of Aki no Kami, and with the income he derived from Aki, repaired the great pagoda at Koya. This work was finished in 6 years, having been entrusted to the steward Watanabe no Endo Rokuro Yorakata, and when it was finished, Kiyomori himself proceeded to Koya and worshipped before the great pagoda, after which he visited the Oku no Inn. Whereupon, from somewhere or other, there suddenly appeared an old priest with white hair and hoary eyebrows, his forehead furrowed with many wrinkles, leaning on a cross-handled staff, who addressed him thus. From ancient days, this holy mountain has yielded place to none as a home of the Shingon doctrine, and now our great pagoda has been repaired, there is none like it in the land. Now Kebai in Echizen and Itsukushima in Iki are the two shrines where our doctrine of the two worlds 2-3-I is revealed. This was no mere man. It was the Daisher J24L, he thought, reverently pondering over the vision, and as a remembrance in this Shaba world he painted two mandaras in the kondo of Koya. The western mandara he had executed by a painter named Jamio Hoin, while the eastern one he painted himself. And for what reason I know not, he painted the crown of Dai Nishai Nairai, the central figure, with blood which he took from his own head. Afterwards he went up to Kyoto and reported this to the retired emperor, whereat, the emperor and the court being greatly moved, he was again appointed kami and bidden to restore the shrine of Itsukushima. So he rebuilt it, raising up its torii and renovating its many shrines, constructing also a gallery measuring 360 yards in length. When all the work was finished, Kiyomori went to worship at the shrine, and in a dream which came to him while spending the night in worship, he saw the doors of the Holy of Holies open and a beautiful youth with tightly bound hair come out and say, "I am the messenger of the Daimyogen of this shrine. Do thou take this blade and make secure therewith the throne of this imperial realm," handing him a short halberd ornamented with silver bands. On his awaking and reflecting on the dream lull, it was a reality, for there was the halberd beside his pillow. Moreover, he received also this oracle from the Daimyogen. "Whether you remember or forget, I know not, but the words of the sage of Koya will stand. If however your actions be evil, your preeminence will not be transmitted to your descendants." Chapter 6. Ariagio. When Shirakawa-in was on the throne, the daughter of the Kwampaku Fujiwara Morizane of Kyogoku became imperial consort, and being a clever lady, was much beloved by the emperor, so that his majesty, wishing to have a son by her, summoned a priest of Midora named Reigo Ajari, who was renowned for the efficacy of his supplications, and promised him that if he could successfully intercede with the Buddhas to grant him a son by this lady, he should be given whatever he might wish. Reigo respectfully assented, and returning to Midora, applied himself to his prayers with all his might to such effect that the Chugu soon became with child. And on the 6th day of the 12th month of the 1st year of Shoho, was safely delivered of a prince. The emperor, greatly overjoyed, again summoned Reigo and asked him what reward he wished for, whereupon Reigo replied that he wished that a ceremonial dais should be built at Midora. Now the emperor, thinking that he would "Now this prince is born," replied the emperor. "We hope that Lai will succeed to the throne and that the land will remain in pace and quietness. But if your request be granted, Heizan will be wroth, the empire will be disturbed, war will break out between your two temples, and the Tendai sect may be destroyed." So that his desire was not granted. Reigo, greatly disappointed, returned to Midora and determined to die by starvation. The emperor, on hearing of this, was greatly amazed, and calling Omasafusa, who was then Mimasaka, no Kami, said to him, "Since you have been a pupil of Reigo, go and see what you can do about this affair." O hastened to Midora and found that Reigo Ajari had retired to his cell to ponder over the imperial decision. Following him thither, he discovered the Ajari sitting in a small smoke, blackened oratory from which he shouted in a voice of thunder, "The word of the emperor is no joke, and imperial speech is like sweat. If I cannot obtain my request, I will carry away the prince that my prayers have made and take him with me to the Meido." And without another word, he retired to his cell. Mimasaka, no, Kami returning reported his experience to the Mikado, whereupon his majesty was exceedingly grieved. Eventually Reigo died by starvation as he had said, and thereupon the little prince fell sick and took to his bed, and although many prayers were said for him, it seemed of no avail. Always a white-haired priest holding a shakujo, 26, appeared to stand at the little prince's pillow, and this not only in people's dreams, but in the reality of broad daylight. And on the 6th day of the 8th month of the first year of Sho, Ryaku, the prince, at last expired at the age of 4 years. He was known as Atsubumi Shino. "The imperial wish," he answered, "can certainly be accomplished by the power of our sect, for was not a prince born to the Mikado Rei Zai, in by the effective prayers of Jai Dai, Sojo, when requested by the Yudejin Kyujo Morisuk Ko. It is not a difficult thing." So, returning to Heizan for 100 days, he gave himself up to earnest prayer. And within this time, the Chugu conceived. And on the 9th day of the 7th month of the 3rd year of Sho, Ryaku, she was safely delivered of a prince who afterwards became the Mikado Horikawa Tenno. So even in ancient times, evil spirits were terrible things. At the time of this most auspicious lying in of Ken, Rei Mon, it was a pity that, in spite of the amnesty that was granted, Shunquin Sazu alone should have been omitted. On the 8th day of the 12th month of the same year, the prince was nominated heir to the throne, the Neidejin Shijimori being appointed instructor and Chunagin Yorimari appointed Dayu. This year having ended, it became the 3rd year of Jisho. Chapter 7. The SHOS returned to Kyoto. In the last decade of the first month Tamba no, Shosho Naritsune and Hai Hangwin Yasuyori Nudo left Case in Heizan and started for Kyoto with all speed. But as the cold was still severe and the sea rough, crawling from harbor to harbor and from one island to another, it was the 10th of the 2nd month before they reached Kajima in Bizen. Thence they went to see Araki, Besho, where the Dainagon, the father of the Shosho, had lived. Here they found various writings on the bamboo, p. 128 pillars, and on the shoji that the Dainagon had left. "Ah," he said, "there is no better memento than a person handwriting. If he had not written this here, how could we have seen where he was?" And the two of them read and reread it again and again with tears. On the 20th day of the 7th month of the 3rd year of Anjin, became a priest. On the 26th day of the same month, Nobutoshi came from Kyoto, was written. Thus they learned that Gensiman, Joe Nobutoshi had been to visit him. On the wall nearby was inscribed, "If we trust to the 3 holy Buddha's bile to receive us, surely we shall be reborn in paradise." Whereat, seeing that he had hoped to be reborn in the Pure Land, they felt somewhat comforted amid their limitless grief. When they inquired for his tomb, alas, there was no mound raised over it, only a place where the earth was a little higher than usual. Adjusting his sleeves respectfully, the Shosho spoke as to a living person, weeping as he addressed him. "The tidings that you had passed away to the world beyond were indeed brought to me in the island where I was living, but not being free I could not hasten hither. Since I was exiled to the island, I was so melancholy that life was unbearable even for a day. But I sustained my frail life and existed for 2 years, and am exceeding joyful to return thus far. And if I could have found my honored father alive, how blessed it would have been. As it is now, length of days has become but vanity. Thus far I have made great haste hither, but from today there will be no need for hurry." Thus he spoke weeping, and had his father been living, how much would he have found to say in reply? But with those in the grave, there dwells no regret. Who is there that can smile when under the moss? The wind in the pines was the only answer. That night the two spent in vigil at the grave, and when day broke they made a new tomb, fencing it about with stakes and building in front a temporary, but where they stayed 7 nights, repeating the Nembutsu and reading the sutras. Then erecting a great sotoba, they inscribed thereon these words, "The deceased, a pure spirit delivered from the wheel of birth and death, now surely entered into the great enlightenment," with the date of the year and month, and beneath it, Naritsune, a filial son. Surely no wood cutter or lowly peasant, however ignorant, could help weeping at this proof of a child being the supremest treasure on earth. As the years roll on, nothing is more unforgettable than gratitude for a kind bringing up. Like a dream it is, and like a vision. Yea, and difficult to end are the present tears of love. The countless Buddhas of the three worlds 28 eye and 10 quarters 29 must have deigned to grieve, and the revered spirit of the departed, how must it have rejoiced? Then, though wishing to stay longer to say the Nembutsu, yet knowing the anxiety of those awaiting them in Kyoto, they took their leave of the late Dainagon, promising to return again, and departed weeping. Even from those, beneath the shadow of the grass, it is hard to part. On the 16th day of the 3rd month at dawn, the Shosho reached Toba, where was the country residence of the late Dainagon, called the Suhama Mansion. On coming to the mansion, they found it all ruinous, the fence without a roof, and the doors gone from the gate. In the garden, there was no trace of anyone, and the moss had grown thick over everything. Walking round beside the pond, the spring breeze of Yama was rippling its surface with white waves, the purple duck and the white sea gulls swimming hither and thither. When could they cease weeping and longing for him who had made it all? The mansion still stood, but the entrance was broken in and the shutters and doors had disappeared. Ah, if the flowers could speak that grow in the home childhood, would I not ask them to tell all they remembered of you? Yasuyori, too, on hearing this, was affected by melancholy feelings and could not but moisten his black sleeves with tears. They wished to stay there much longer and, loath to leave, they remained until the evening. As it grew dark, the moonbeams, as is their wont in ruined houses, fell through the ancient eaves and flooded the moldering chambers with light. Even when the dawn began to break on the mountains, they did not hasten homewards. But as he could not remain there forever, the Shosho sent for the palanquin, since it had not waited for them, and reluctantly left the Suhama mansion in tears, going on towards Kyoto rejoicing and sorrowing by turns. A palanquin had also come to meet Yasuyori Nudo, but being unwilling to part from his companion yet, he did not use it, but getting into the back of the Shosho vehicle, went with him as far as Shichijo Kawara, where their ways divided, but still they did not wish to part. Those who spend half a day together under the cherry, blossoms, friends who look at the moon together for an evening, travelers who stand under the same tree out of a sudden shower until it is over, all these feel regret at parting. How much more those who have lived a life of misery in the same island, on the same ship, and in the same storms. Since they have the same karma, must not their relation in the former life have been most deep? The Shosho mother, who was living at Ryozan, had come the day before to the house of the Seisho to await her son, and when she but caught sight of him as he entered, in her emotion at seeing him alive, she covered her face and lay prostrate. His wife, too, who had been in the flower of her beauty when he left, had become so emaciated with anxiety about him that he hardly thought her the same person, while the black hair of his nurse Rokujo had become snow white. His child, who was 3 years old at the time of his exile, had now grown old enough to bind his hair. Seeing another child of 3 beside him, the Shosho inquired who it might be, but Rokujo could only falter. "Ah, that one indeed," when she was overcome by tears. Then the Shosho remembered with sorrow that his wife had been about to give birth when he was exiled, and that this must be the child that she had brought up safely. The Shosho then visited the Ho, as he had formerly been accustomed to do, and was promoted to the office of Seisho, no, Chujo. Yasuyori Nudo retired to a country seat that he had at Sorinji on Higashi, Yama, and there lived quietly. His sentiments he thus expressed: "Thickly the moss has grown on the eaves of the roof of my home place. Through the opened chinks filter the beams of the moon." And so, living a secluded life, he pondered on his former unhappy days and diverted himself by writing a work called Habutsu Shu, or Treasury. Chapter 8. The visit of Arid to the island. Thus 2 of the exiles of Kikegashima were recalled and returned to the capital, and now only one was left, a pitiful guardian of the isle. Now Shunkwen Sazu had a servant called Ario, whom he had taken pity on and brought up from high childhood. This Ario, hearing that the exiles of Kikegashima were returning to the capital, had gone as far as Toba to meet his master, and not seeing him had inquired and been told that, as his crime was most heinous, he alone had been left behind on the island. Grief-stricken at the news, he took to frequenting Rokuhara, and as he did not hear that a pardon was likely to be granted, he went to the daughter of the Sazu, where she was living in retirement, and said, "This time he has been left behind and has not come back. Now I must go anyhow to the island and find out how he is faring. So I pray you write me a letter that I may take it." The lady was overjoyed at this, and immediately wrote as he had suggested. He would have wished to take leave of his parents openly, but fearing they would not agree, he went off without telling anyone. As the China ships used to sail on the 4th or 5th month, thinking that to set out in the summer would be too late, he started from Kyoto at the end of the 3rd month, and after suffering a hard sea passage, arrived at last in Satsuma Bay. At the port whence he tried to cross over to the island, however, he was suspected and trapped and searched, but nothing daunted. He secreted the letter he was carrying his top knot, and in the end managed to get a passage in a merchant ship and reach the island. He had heard some slight account of it in Kyoto, but it was nothing to what he actually found. No rice fields, no gardens, no houses, no village. There were some inhabitants, but he could not understand their speech, and thus when he went to inquire of them, "Where is Shunkwan Sazu, the Shugyo of Hishoji, who has been exiled to this place?" Whether they understood the words Hishoji or Shugyo or not, they answered nothing, but only shook their heads. There was, however, one who knew that there had been 3 men on the island, and that 2 of them had gone back to the capital, leaving one behind who wandered about hither and thither as though beside himself. But lately he had not been seen. On hearing this, Ario plunged deep into the uncertain mountain paths, climbing the peaks and descending into the valleys. Losing the track in the mists, he could not find his way until the golden sunset found him still on the hills, and there he lay down and slept, but never once did he see the figure of his master. Then, not finding him on the mountains, he searched along the shore, but there was none who answered his cries but the sea gulls, whose footprints he saw on the sands, or the chidori that flocked on the beach. But one morning he saw a figure creeping along by the rocks on the shore, searching for driftwood and thorns, emaciated as a dragonfly, looking like a priest whose hair had grown long and bristling up on his head. Over his skinny, wrinkled frame, a few rags were hanging, whether of silk or cotton could not be discerned. In one hand he had some arame, and in the other a fish that someone had given him. He was trying to walk, but could scarcely get along and staggered like one drunken. Ario had seen many beggars in Kyoto, but never yet had he seen one like this. All the Asuras Hall dwell by the ocean. The Asuras and the 3 evil things hill dwell in the depths of the mountains and by the ocean, say the Buddhist sutras, and he thought for an instant that he had unwittingly entered the Gaki, Du-F Preta Hill, world. But as he approached, he wondered if even such a creature might perchance know something of his master, and going up to him, repeated the question that he had put to the islanders the day before. "Can you tell me where I can find Shunkwan Sazu, the Shugyo of Hishoji?" The servant did not recognize his master, but how could Shunkwan forget Ario? And crying out, "Here he is," the things that he was carrying fell from his grasp, and he sank down senseless on the sand. And thus it was that Ario found his master. Then taking his dying master on his knees, Ario cried, "Alas, after having braved the rough seas and come so far, it is of no avail. Thus to find my master in such distress." As he thus lamented in tears, the Sazu, coming to himself and sitting up, said, "Indeed you are beyond praise thus to dare the dangers of the sea and come so far a journey. Day and night I have never for a moment ceased to think of home, and the faces of my dear ones were ever before me both in dreams and in illusions. Since I have become so ill and weak, I cannot tell dream from reality. Even now, I wonder if your coming is not a dream. If it be indeed a dream, what shall I do when I awaken?" "Indeed it is real," replied Ario, "but when I see your condition, it seems a miracle that you can have lived to see me. Not only so, answered the Sazu, but last year when they came to fetch the Shosho and the Hangwin Nudo, I scarcely refrained from dying by my own hand. Foolishly, I relied on the consoling words of the faithless Shosho that he would send someone hither when he arrived at Kyoto. But though not willing to live in this island, there is no food. So, while I had the strength, I used to go up into the mountains and collect the sulfur that is found there. This I would barter for food with the merchants who come from time to time from Kyushu, but growing gradually weaker, I became unable to do so, and row when the weather is fine. I can but manage to creep out to the beach and beg a little fish from the fishermen, or, when the tide is out, pick up some shellfish or edible seaweed. Thus holding on to my dew-like existence by the moss of the sea, I have managed to keep alive in wretchedness until now. And I wonder what reason there is for me to continue longer in this fleeting world. But let us go to my house, for there are many things I wish to say. Then Ario, thinking it strange that one in such a state should possess a house, took him on his back and went towards a place that the Sazu pointed out. It was in the midst of a pine wood, a hut made with bamboos for pillars and bundles of reeds for cross, beams, thickly covered inside and out with pine, needless. Too frail it seemed to keep off rain and wind. How strange a place is this for one who of late was bursar of his shoji, and had 80 manors in his charge, who had in his gate houses 400 or 500 servants and retainers at his beck and call. Indeed, there are various kinds of karma, that which reacts in the present life, that which reacts in the next life, and that which will continue for many lives. This Sazu had all his life been occupied with nothing but the business of great temples and the affairs of Buddha. But while thus professing the way of Buddha, having committed a shameless crime, the result of this karma fell upon him thus quickly in this world. The Sazu had now perceived that Ario was no apparition and inquired, "Last year when they came for the Shosho and the Hangwin, there were no tidings for me. Have you also no letters from anyone?" Ario, choked with sobs, pressed his face to the ground, and for some time could answer nothing. Then raising himself again, restraining his tears, he replied, "After my lord went to Nishi Hachijo, the Nudo officials came and confiscated all our property, and after arresting all the retainers, they examined them with respect to the revolt, and then put them all to death. Our Lady fled with her youngest daughter, and went into retirement on Mount Kurama. I alone went sometimes to see them, and found them ever in a sorrowful state. The child, as she missed you so much, would always embarrass me by asking, 'Please take me to Kikegashima.' But in the second month, being taken with smallpox, she died. Our Lady Mistress, unable to bear this added blow, then sank into melancholy and took to her bed, and on the second day of the third month she also departed this life. Only the elder daughter is now living safely in retirement with her aunt at Nara, and it is from her that I have brought this letter." The Sazu opened and read it, and therein was written all that Ario had said, to which was added, "Ah, one, why is it that when 3 were exiled 2 have returned, and 1 only is left, and so far you have not come back? Alas, one high or low, there is none so useless as a woman. If I had been a man, I would have come to the island whither you have gone. Pray come back again soon with this youth." "Ah," said Shunquin, "see, Ario, the pathetic simplicity of this girl, writing that I should soon come back with you. If I had been free to please myself, should I have stayed 3 years in such a place? She must now be about 12 years old. How will such a simple child be able to marry? Perchance, she may be able to keep herself by serving in some great household." And he burst into tears afresh. How does this remind us of the saying, "Even a wise parent goes astray in considering his own children"? Since I came to this island, he continued, as there was no calendar, I have had no knowledge of the days and months. Only by the blossoming and falling of the flowers do I know that 3 springs and autumns have passed, and the voice of the cicada alone tells me that wheat harvest is over and summer is come. The piling up of the snow tells me that it is winter. By the waxing and waning of the moon, I perceive that 30 days have gone by, and by counting on my fingers, I know that my little boy will be 6 this year. Has he, too, preceded me to the other world? When I went out that fateful day to Nishi Hachijo, he wanted me to take him with me, and to console him, I said I would soon be back. It seems indeed but yesterday. When I think of all these things, the future is nothing to me. The relation of parent and child, husband and wife is not for this world only. Now it is only about my daughter that I am anxious, and if she be alive, she may continue to live, even though it be in wretchedness. But as for me, if I continue to live thus, the sight of my misery must pain you greatly. So from this time, he steadfastly refused all food and earnestly gave himself up to invoking Amida and saying the death prayers. And on the 23rd day from the coming of Ario, the Sazu expired in his hut at the age of 37. Ario, clasping the lifeless body, looked up to heaven and cast himself on the ground, weeping unrestrainedly. Ah, how gladly would I follow you to the other world, but for my young mistress' sake who is left behind, and because there is no other to houses were overturned. The wind started from Naka, Mikado Kyogoku, and blew across to the southwest, tearing the roofs off the gate, houses of the mansions, and carrying them away to a distance of from 4 or 5 to 10 cho. Rafters and beams and pillars flew about in the air, and the wooden shingles from the roofs blew about everywhere like leaves in the wind. The mighty roaring of it was such that even the wind of karma, I-33I, that blows people to hell, could not be greater. Not only were houses destroyed, but many people lost their lives, and cattle without number were killed. This was no ordinary occurrence, so that divination was necessary, and the official soothsayers proceeded to make it. Within 100 days, a minister in receipt of great emoluments must look at himself, beside which there will be a crisis in the empire, and the throne and the law of Buddha will decline. Wars will also follow one on another. So the official soothsayers and court diviners both decided unanimously. Chapter 10. The argument about physicians. In the summer of the same year, Kamatsu Dono, feeling melancholy and distressed about these and other matters, made a pilgrimage to Kumano, and spent the whole night before the Shajuden of the main shrine, calmly making his offerings and humbly praying thus. My father, the lay priest-chancellor, acting in a worthless and immoral fashion, is likely to trouble even the imperial throne. Seeing this, even the prosperity of this generation seems endangered. I, being the eldest son, continually tender him advice, but being a stupid fellow, he does not adopt my recommendations, so that it will be difficult to honor our ancestors and exalt the name of our family. At this time, I find myself very incompetent, and thus I, unworthy descendant of my line, cannot act as a good minister and wise son to guide the fortunes of my house. Better were it to give up my name, and, forsaking all hopes in this life, to try to attain enlightenment in the future. But an ignorant and ordinary person like myself surely will go astray in making choice, so I cannot do as I would. Namu Ganjin Kongo Doji, I beseech thee, let the prosperity of our line continue, that we may still be favored with the gracious friendship of our sovereign, and that the evil mind of my father may be softened, and that the empire may be peaceful in our days. But if our house is to be prosperous in this one generation only, and shame is to fall on our posterity, then I pray thee cut short even now the life of Shijimori, and deliver him from the wheel of sorrow, I-34I, in the life to come. I look to thy mystic aid in both these petitions. And as he prayed earnestly thus, a light as of a lamp issued from the body of the minister, and then suddenly disappeared as though extinguished, and though there were many who saw it, yet for fear none said anything about it. When the minister returned to Kyoto, and while he was crossing the Iwata, Gawa, his eldest son, gone. No, Tsukukomori and some other courtiers, who were wearing a violet-colored dress beneath their white hemp costumes, it being the hottest time of summer, for some reason or other went into the water and were sporting there, so that the violet showed through their wet upper garments, and it looked like a single garment of morning color. Chikugo no Kami, seeing this, called out, "A dress that suggests morning is very ill-omened, I pray you haste and change it quickly." But Shijimori replied, "There is no need to change it. It is a sign that my petition is to be fulfilled." And from Iwata, Gawa, he sent offerings to Kumano with a thankful heart. The others present thought it strange, but he did not deign to enlighten them at all. But these courtiers, strange to say, soon had to put on the color in real earnest. After Shijimori returned to Kyoto, a few days passed and he became ill. Thinking that the Gonjin had soon accepted his petition, he applied no remedy, neither did he pray for recovery. About that time, a famous physician came from the Sung Court of China and was staying in Japan. On hearing this, the minister, having himself raised in bed, called Moritoshi into his presence and said, "With regard to this offer of the physician, I am much obliged to you, but as you doubtless know well, that even such a wise ruler as Daigo Tenno, in the era of Enki, should have allowed a foreign physiognomist to be introduced into the capital, is to be considered a wise emperor mistake and a shame to our country ever after. Far greater disgrace, then, would it be to our land that a common person like Shijimori should bring a foreign physician into the capital." When Koso of Kan, in administering his country, struck down Keifu of Wai, Nan with the 3-foot sword that he carried, and was struck and wounded by a stray arrow, the Empress Dowager Ro called a skillful physician who said, "To heal this wound, 50 pounds of gold will be required." Then Koso answered, "As I have been strong in defending myself, I have fought many battles and received many wounds. They have not disabled me, for my time has not come. Our lives are in the hands of heaven, and even if one had such a famous physician as Henjaku HSL, it would be no use." But as he did not wish to appear to grudge the money, he gave 50 pounds of gold to the doctor but did not receive the treatment. This is a precedent with which I am quite satisfied. I, Shijimori, though of no account, rose to be numbered among those of the first 3 ranks, and further was advanced to be one of the 3 great ministers. My destiny, therefore, is in the hands of heaven. Why should I question heaven will and hanker after physicians? If my illness is destined to be fatal, of what use is a physician? But if it is not so destined, without a physician help I shall recover. Without availing himself of the skill of Kiba, Hill Shaka Muni declared his entry into nirvana by the Batsu, Dai River. 380. One, since this was a disease that was destined to be fatal, it was to show that it could not be cured. Only Buddha can heal completely. Kiba can but alleviate sickness. If a fatal disease can be cured by physicians, why then did Shaka die? It is quite clear that medicine is of no value for a fatal disease. But my body is not the body of a Buddha, so that distinguished doctors or even Kiba are not necessary. If we judge by the 4 books, 39I, how can even the best of 100 remedies save this vile mortal body of ours? Is it not also written in the 5 volumes J40J? Though one can cure ordinary diseases, how can one cure that which is caused by the karma of a previous existence? Moreover, if I should live as the result of this physician treatment, it would seem as though there were no skillful doctor in Japan. If his treatment is unavailing, it is not necessary for me to see him. And if one holding the position of one of the first 3 ministers of Japan comes to ask an interview of a wealthy foreign guest, it is both a disgrace to the country and also a degradation of his morality. So that though I may lose my life, yet I must not for a moment think of disgracing my country. Having heard all these words, Moritoshi weeping returned to Fukuhara and repeated everything to Kiyomori. From of old time, said the Nudo, I have never heard of a minister who would consider the disgrace of his country, and neither did I think there was one in these degenerate days. Shijimori is too good a minister. I fear that he may probably die. So he hastily returned to the capital. On the 28th day of the 7th month, Shijimori became a priest, taking the name Jo, Ren, and on the first day of the 8th month, having said the death prayers, he passed away at the age of 43. In such a prosperous time, how sad an end indeed. Though the lay priest chancellor would try to tear paper across 41I the grain, Yet Shijimori was always their tea to smooth things over, so that the empire remained peaceful until this time. But now all classes of society were lamenting and wondering what would happen in times to come. But T, friends of the former Yudeisho Monogatari, were rejoicing greatly, thinking that now the control of everything would fall into Lei's hands. Parents' love for their children is often a cause of sadness to them, but it is doubly sad when they die before their parent. He was the pillar of his house and the wisest man of his Ai. The loss of his kindness and affection and the decline of his house cannot be too much deplored. The empire lost a good minister, and his house had to lament the loss of his counsel in the field. Moreover, he was a man versed in letters, loyal to the emperor, talented and accomplished, and a man of virtuous conversation. Chapter 11. The Undecorated Sword. The character of this minister being thus remarkable, may it not be that he could foresee the future? For before his death, on the 7th day of the 4th month, he had a dream. He seemed to be walking a long distance on the shore when he saw a large torii near him. Wondering what torii it was, someone said that it was that of Kasuga Daimyojin. Then a crowd of people came thronging to the place, and one of them held up the head of a big priest on the point of a sword. Shijimori asked whose head it was. "It is the head of the Dajo Nudo Dono of the Heth, E.K., was the reply. For the enormity of his sins, the daimyo, Jin of this shrine, has ordered it to be taken. Then he awoke. Ah, he thought, our house has subdued the enemies of the emperor many times since Hojin and Heiji, and being greatly rewarded, has come to produce a Dajo Daijin who is grandfather to the emperor. In our clan, more than 60 men have received great advancement, and in 20 years there is none in all the empire who can compare with us in rank and office. And now, through the manifold evil deeds of the Nudo, the fall of our family draws nigh." And he wept bitterly. Just at this time, there was a great knocking at the door of his apartment. On inquiring who was there, they told him that Sino no Tero Kenyasu, having just had a very extraordinary dream, in spite of the lateness of the hour, begged leave to relate it to him, and also requested that everyone should be sent from the apartment. When all had left him alone, Shijimori gave him audience, and he related with full detail exactly the same dream as the Daijin himself had just had. Then, thought Shijimori, the god has revealed these things to Kenyasu also. The next morning, as his eldest son Gon no Suk no Shoshokormori was preparing to go to the palace of the retired emperor, his father called him and said, "For a parent to say such things is perhaps rather conceited, but you are a very clever son. Ho, there serve the Shosho with a cup of sake." Chikuga no Kami Sadyoshi poured out a cup and offered it to the Shosho. But as he would not drink before his father, the Daijin drank 3 cups, and afterwards the Shosho drank thrice. Then Shijimori ordered what he intended for the Shosho to be brought, and they brought a sword and a bag of red brocade. The Shosho, thinking that it was the sword called Kagurasu, 42I, the famous heirloom of the Heth-E-K, looked greatly delighted. But how did his face fall when he saw that it was only the plain black sword worn at the funeral of a minister? Then his father said, weeping, "This is no mistake of Sadyoshi. It is the black sword without decoration to be worn at a minister funeral. The Nudo thought I should wear it to accompany him to the grave, but now, as I shall certainly die before him, I present it to you." The Shosho made no answer, but, retiring to his apartment in tears, he covered his face and lay down and did not go out that day. It was after this that Shijimori went to Kumano, and soon after he returned was taken ill and died. Truly indeed he must have known. Chapter 12. Of Lanterns. Now Shijimori was a minister who had a strong desire to destroy evil and encourage virtue, and therefore, deploring the coming doom of his house, in imitation of the 48 vows of Amida, he built 48 temples at the foot of Higashi, Yama, and hung up 48 lanterns, one in each of them. On the 14th and 15th of every month they were lighted, and prayers were offered, so that they looked like the brilliant effulgence of the polished mirrors that shine in the beauteous palaces of the paradise of the Pure Land. Moreover, 288 young and lovely maidens of noble birth were selected, 6 for each temple, and these were ordained as nuns, that on these 2 days of every month they might raise their voices in earnest and unceasing supplication. In truth, it seemed as if the light of the Nyorai who comes to receive men shone on the earth, as if the rays of the all, saving Buddha shone on the minister. On the 15th day, there was a great 1,000 ryo, and handed it over to the priests of Ikuwazan, while he presented another 2,000 to the emperor. When he reported to the emperor the words of Komatsu Dono, His Majesty was struck with admiration, and ordered 500 cho of land to be presented to Ikuwazan. And it is said that an inscription praying for a happy rebirth in the future existence for the minister of Japan, Taira no Asan Shijimori Ko, is still in existence at that place at the present day. After the death of Komatsu Dono, the Nyudo fell into a state of melancholy, and hastening to Fukuhara, went into retirement there. Chapter XIV. The Argument of Heian. At the hour of the dog, 8 p.m., on the 7th day of the 11th month of the same year, the earth quaked very greatly for a long time, and the chief diviner Yasuchika hurried to the palace and gave his verdict as follows. According to the books of divination, this earthquake is a very serious portent. Consulting the book called Kongakayo, one of the 3 books of divination, we find that it is not a matter of years, months, or days. It points to a very near and urgent affair, and he lifted up his voice and wept. The imperial messenger, too, was greatly perturbed, and when it was reported to the emperor, His Majesty was extremely alarmed. But many of the younger nobles and courtiers burst out laughing when they heard of it, saying, "What is this useless Yasuchika weeping about? Is it likely that anything much is going to happen now?" This Yasuchika, however, had received the traditions of 5 generations and was deeply learned in astronomy, and as he had always explained the omens accurately up till now without making any mistakes, he was considered a divinely inspired prophet. On one occasion in a thunderstorm, the sleeve of his karajinu had been scorched by a flash of lightning, without any injury to his person, in whatever age a sign that he was specially favored by heaven. On the 14th day, the lay priest chancellor, for some reason or other, saw fit to return to the capital with a long train of several thousand horsemen, thereby throwing the city into a tumult, though there was no special reason for it. Someone started the rumor that Kiyomori had come up to Kyoto with hostile intentions against the imperial court. The Kwampaku Matafusa also hurried to court, perhaps in consequence of some secret information. It seems that the Nyudo has come up to the capital this time to try and overthrow me, and I know not what affliction I may not have to endure, said the Kwampaku to his imperial master. Whatever may happen to you, replied the emperor, I shall feel as though the same misfortune had befallen me. And the august tears coursed down his dragon countenance. We speak it with awe. Though the government of the country was transacted by the emperor and the Kwampaku, yet none knew what would happen. The matter was as the will of Tensho Daijin or Kasuga Daimyojin. On the 15th day, there was no doubt that Kiyomori intended hostilities against the court, and the retired emperor in great consternation sent Jokin Hoin, son of the late Shinsei Dainagen, to Rokuhara with this message. This year the imperial family has been troubled, and people are unsettled. The people also are restless and disquieted, all of which causes us much grief. Hoin proceeded to Nishihachijo, but the Nyudo would not receive him, and having waited there from morning till evening, as he could not obtain an audience, thinking it was no use, he transmitted the imperial message to Gendayu no Hangwan Susada and went to take his leave, when the Nyudo ordered him to be called back, and on his returning thus addressed him. A priest Hoin. Is what I say untrue? The death of P. 148. Shijimori is a great blow to our house, and you may guess how deep is my grief. During the disturbances that followed the era of Hojin, when the peace of the emperor was disturbed, I only administered affairs, while Shijimori also humbly exerted himself to the utmost and pacified the imperial wrath. Moreover, whether in emergencies or in ordinary matters of administration, a more meritorious minister would have been difficult to find. Then consider the history of former ages, how the Emperor Taisho of China, when his minister Jicho died, was excessively grieved and wrote this inscription on his tomb, so great was his sorrow. In so of old dreamed that he had a virtuous minister, but I when I awake know that I have lost a wise one. In our country also, if I mistake not, when Akiori no Mimbu no Kaio died, the late retired emperor was excessively grieved and postponing his visit to Hachiman, refrained from going out. All the emperors, in fact, when their ministers died, mourned for them, but now, when Shijimori has not yet been dead 50 days, the emperor goes to the shrine of Hachiman and to other places, not showing the least sign of regret. Even if you forget Shijimori loyal conduct, why do you not sympathize with my grief? How can you forget Shijimori loyalty? If both father and son thus lose the favor of the emperor, both are put to shame. This is one thing. Then, though the emperor promised not to change his demeanor either to my sons or grandsons, as soon as Shijimori is dead, he takes back the domain of Echizen which he had held. For what misconduct was this done? Then again, when the office of Chunegin was vacant and the Niai Chusho Matamichi earnestly desired it, I recommended him for it, but no notice was taken, and the office was given to the son of the Kwampaku. However unreasonable I may be, why is it that he was thus favored? It is much to be regretted that the emperor should thus pass over one so suitable in rank and birth in so arbitrary a manner. Then again, when the followers and retainers of the Shin, Dainagan Narachika no Kaio met together in Shishigatani to foment a rebellion, that was not done on their own initiative. It was in accordance with the wish of the retired emperor, and though it is a strange thing to say, though the emperor ought not to forget the services of my house for 7 generations, yet he planned to take away the little remaining life that is left to me in my old age of 70 years and 10. It would seem then to be difficult for my descendants to continue to serve the court in after generations. Thus bereft of my son in my old age, I am like a withered tree that has no branches. What then is the use of my wasting my time in such a case? What will happen you yourself can guess. As he spoke thus vehemently, alternating between anger and tears, Hoin was moved both to pity and fear, and the cold sweat stood out upon him. No one could have made any answer at such a time. Indeed, your services have been very great, and no doubt your anger is not without reason. But surely both as regards rank and emoluments, you have no cause for dissatisfaction. Moreover, your great merits are always remembered by the imperial house. But to say that the revolt of the courtiers was by the design of the emperor, is it not but a treasonable slander? But to believe the ear, and to doubt the eye, is always the bad habit of the world at large. To believe the words of people of no account, putting aside the imperial favor and opposing the emperor is, whether secret or revealed, a very terrible thing. Heaven is wide and immeasurable in extent, and not otherwise is the mind of the emperor that the inferior should be disobedient to his superior. How can such conduct befit a minister? Pray consider this well. This is the purport of what I have to say. All those who stood by, on hearing this reply, exclaimed, "How bold thus calmly to answer the Nudo when he is in such a rage!" And there was none who did not praise him greatly. Chapter XV. Banishment of the Daijin. Hoin, returning from Rokuhara, reported the speech of the Nudo to the Ho. Oh, and his majesty, thinking there was much right on his side, said nothing further. On the 16th day, the Nudo carried out his intentions by depriving the Kwampaku and 43 other courtiers of their offices. The Kwampaku Matafusa, on hearing in addition that he was transferred to the office of Dazai no Satsu and was to depart to Kyushu, remarking that in an evil world like this, it did not matter what happened, retired to his house at Furukawa near Toba and became a monk, his age being 35. He was an unclouded mirror of courtesy, said everyone, and regret at his loss was extreme. Former examples of the exile of ministers are the Sadejin Soga no Aki, Udejin Toyanari, Tile Sadejin Uona, and the Udejin Sugawara J44L. I mention him with great respect, for he is the present Tenjin of Kitano, besides the Sadejin Komaiko and the Nadai Jin Fujiwara no Ishuko. 6 in all, but this was the first example of the exile of a Sessho Kampaku. The son of the Naka Dono Niai Chujo Matamichi, son, in, law of the Nyudo, then became Daijin and Kwampaku. Of these two, Chugi-ko had been passed over by his brother in rank and office, but when he in turn stepped over his brother and became Sho, Nai, Daijin, and obtained a private intimation of this from the emperor, everyone said it was the most extraordinary promotion they had heard of. But a much more extraordinary case was it when one who was only Nai, Chujo, and not a counselor of state, passing over the office of Dainagan SL, became Daijin and Sessho in one leap. Fujinji Dono, Matamichi, was the first one who ever did so. The counselors, Shokuf J, the ministers, Seisho, the chief secretary and the officials under them were all dumbfounded. The Dajo, Daijin Morinaga, was deprived of office and exiled to the eastern provinces. As the reflection of the guilt of his father, the evil Sadejin of Hojin, he with 3 of his brothers went into exile. His elder brother, the Udaisho Kane Naga, the younger brother Hidari no Chujo Takanaga, and Hansho Zenji did not live to return to the capital but died at their place of banishment. But Morinaga, after 9 years spent in Tosa, was recalled in the 8th month of the 2nd year of Chokwin, restored to his original rank, and the following year raised to Shoni, upper 2nd rank. In the 10th month of the 1st year of Nin, and he rose from being Chunagan to the office of Gon Dainagan. The office of Dainagan not being vacant at this time, he was added as supernumerary. It was the first time. There had been 6 Dainagans at the same time. Also promotion from former Chunagan to Gon Dainagan, with the exception of Uji, no, Dainagan Takakuni, no Kaio, who afterwards became Yamashina no, Daijin Minori Ko, was never known before. He was skilled in music and very accomplished in other arts, so his progress was rapid until at last he became Dajo, Daijin. Then, as the result of some fault in a previous existence, he was again sent into exile. In former times in Hojin, he was sent to Tosa by the southern sea, and now in Jisho he was again, it seemed, to go to Oeri beyond the eastern boundary. But being guiltless as before, and as a man of taste, only wishing to gaze at the moon in his place of banishment, the Daijin made light of it. Recollecting how of old Rakuten, when guest of the Crown Prince of China, used to wander about the Bay of Jinio. In like manner he leisurely passed his days, gazing at the distant sea scenery of the Bay of Narumi and viewing the clear moon, whistling to the sea breeze and chanting songs to the accompaniment of his biwa. Once he made a pilgrimage to the shrine of Atsuta Myojin in that province, and in the evening performed a recitation on his biwa to please the deity. It was a place where there were none but unlettered people living, and there were none with any elegant taste. But the village people, young and old, girls, fishermen and farmers, came out with bent head and intent ear to listen, though they knew nothing of time or rhythm. So it is said that, when Koba played the biwa, the fish would dance in the water, and when Kyuko sang, the dust on the beams would skip about. When a genius performs, then emotion is invoked spontaneously. So the hair of his audience stood on end at the wonder of his playing, and as it gradually grew later, while he sung a piece called Fuko, or Fragrance, the flowers poured forth their scent, and when singing of the flowing water, the moon shed its pure clear white light over the scene, until at last the god, unable to contain his feelings any longer, caused the sanctuary to tremble greatly. Shosho Masakata, were moreover expelled the same day from the capital. Thereupon the Danegan remarked, "The 3 worlds are wide, but therein no room for my 5-foot length. Though life is short, it is difficult to live for a single day. If you go out of the 9-fold imperial court by night, you have got to go beyond the 8-fold clouds." So, going by Oyama and the way of Akuno, first he came to a place called Murakumo in Tamba, where he stayed some time. Then at last, going on from thence, he is said to have reached Shinano. Chapter XVI. The Case of Wayukatike. Now among the retainers of the former Kwanpaku Matatusa was a samurai named Ko no Teiyu Hangwin Tanari, who was not favorable to the Heth, E.K. Hearing that he was to be arrested by Rokuhara, he took his son Ko Sernon, no Jo Inari, with him and fled to the south country. Ascending Inariyama and dismounting from their horses, father and son took counsel together, saying, "We had hoped to flee to the east and find refuge with the former Ahio no Suk Yoritomo, but he has been excommunicated and is himself in jeopardy, and there hardly seems any other place in Nippon that is not a Heth, E.K. fief. As therefore we cannot escape, and it is a disgrace to let our ancestral home fall into strange hands, let us go back again, and when the Rokuhara retainers come, we will set fire to the house and cut open our bellies and die in the flames." So they went back again to their mansion at Kawarsaka, and just as they had expected, Jendyu no Hangwin Susada and Setsu no Hangwin Morasumi Karn against them with 300 horsemen, shouting their warcry exultantly. Then Ko no Teiyu Hangwin came forth onto the veranda and shouting in a loud voice, "See that you tell this at Rokurarel," set fire to the house, and cutting himself open with his son, both perished in the flaming pile. Now the reason why all these misfortunes fell on so many people was the rivalry for the office of Chunegan between the former Kwampaku sons Sami no Chujo Moroka and Nai I no Chujo Matamichi, who became Kwampaku. However much the former Kwampaku suffered, for it did not so much matter, but how about the justice of the 43 others? And the Nudo did not stop at these things only, so that people said an evil spirit had entered into him, and he had lost all self-control, so that the city was troubled thereat. In spite of the title of Sudoku Tenno being given to Sanuki, no In, and Fujiwara, no Yorinaga, the evil Sadijin, being promoted in rank and office, still there was no tranquility. Now there was a certain former Sashobin Yukitaka, the eldest son of Nakayama, no Chunegan Akitoki no Kaio, who had been made Shogun in the time of the retired Emperor Nijo, and was a very energetic official, but for the last 10 years or so had been retired from his office, and was living in such straitened circumstances that he had not sufficient food or clothing. To him, the Nudo sent a message to make haste and repair to Rokuhara, as he had some matter to discuss with him. Yukitaka, on hearing this, was greatly perturbed, thinking that, in spite of his having held no office or appeared in society for some 10 years, someone had slandered him to Kiyomori with intent to bring about his complete destruction. His wife and children, also terror-stricken, uttered loud lamentations. However, as repeated messages came from Rokuhara, Yukitaka, seeing that he must obey, borrowed a car from someone and set out. Quite contrary to his supposition, the Nudo immediately came forth and received him cordially. "Your noble father," said he, "did me various services, and I will not be negligent toward his son. I have felt very sorry for your long exclusion from office, but in face of the Ho-Oh decisions, I had no power to remedy it. But now I bid you resume your duties and will give orders about your new office." On his return home, his family received him, weeping for joy, as one that has returned from the dead. Afterwards, by the hand of Jendayu no Hangwin Susada, estates and fiefs were granted him as a monument, and as a convenience besides, he was presented with 100 pieces of silk, 100 ryo of gold, and abundance of rice. As accessories of his office, he was also granted a liberal allowance of servants, ox, carts, and drivers. Yukitaka was so overcome with joy that he hardly knew where he was going or what he was doing. It was so like a dream. On the 17th day, he was made curando of the 5th rank, and again resumed his former office of Sashobin. He was then 51 years of age, but appeared to have suddenly become young again. It was, however, a transient prosperity. Chapter XVI. The Exile of the Ho-Oh. On the 20th day of the same month, the forces of the Hek surrounded the palace of the Ho-Oh, and all the ladies, in waiting and male and female servants, thinking that they would burn the palace and put all in it to death as Nobuyori had done when he attacked the Sanjo palace in Heiji, forgetting all but their own safety, fled in wild panic without even waiting to garb themselves. Then the former Yudaisho, Monomori no Kaio, gave orders to bring the imperial car and to make all haste, whereat the Ho-Oh, much perturbed, exclaimed, "Am I to be banished to some far country or distant island like Narachika or Shunquin?" "Then," replied the Ho-Oh, "please deign to attend me thither." But Monomori, fearing his father anger, p. 156, did not accompany his majesty, his conduct in this respect being greatly inferior to that of his late brother Shijimori, who the year before in such a case had at his own risk prevented the Ho-Oh suffering so great a dishonor and secured his safety until now. But now there was none to reprove the Nudo, and so this affair had come to pass. There seemed little hope for the future, and the Ho-Oh, thinking of these things, wept bitterly. Then, entering his car, unattended by any of his nobles or courtiers, with only a few guards of low rank and an attendant priest named Kangyo, he set out. At the back of the imperial car rode a nun, who had been the Ho-Oh milk nurse, called Kino Nai Ai. As the car passed along Shichijo toward the west, and then along Shujaku toward the south, the bystanders exclaimed, "Ah, the Ho-Oh is going into exile," and there were none among the common people who did not moisten their sleeves with their tears at the sight. Everyone said that the earthquake on the 7th day was a portent of this, and that it was because the earth deity who responds even to 1,000 million depths had raged furiously. When the Ho-Oh had come to the Toba Palace, there was not a single retainer to wait on him, but Daisen, no Teiyu Nobunari, having somehow managed to escape notice, came and presented himself before his majesty. "I think it is likely that I shall be put to death soon, so I wish to have the holy water prepared." "How do you think?" asked the Ho-Oh. On hearing this, Nobunari, who had been extremely anxious all that morning, was dumbfounded, but girding up the sleeves of his karajinu and pouring water into a cauldron, he broke down a small fence for firewood, and splitting up some small beams of the corridor, heated the water in due form. Then Jokin Hoin went to the Nudo at Nishi Hachijo and urged that, the Ho-Oh having gone to the Toba Palace the night before, it was too severe treatment that he should have not a single person in attendance, so he himself wished to go and attend on his majesty. The Nudo replied that as he was a trustworthy priest, he might go, whereupon Jokin was exceedingly delighted and immediately hastened to the Toba Palace. Alighting from his car at the entrance, as soon as he entered within the gate, he heard the voice of the Ho-Oh chanting the sutras, and it had indeed a very melancholy sound. When Hoin hastily entered, he saw the Ho-Oh sitting and shedding tears upon the sutra that he was reading, and in his grief at the sight, he too pressed the sleeve of his white costume to his eyes, and thus came into his presence weeping. Only the nun was in attendance. "Ah, Hoin," said the Ho-Oh, "since you had breakfast yesterday morning in the Hajuji den, neither last night nor this morning have you taken any food. Neither have you slept at all through the night. Indeed, I fear some danger to your life." Hoin, controlling his feelings, replied, "Everything in this world has an end. The Heike have held the empire in their hands for 20 years, but their evil deeds have gone on piling up, and verily their end too will come. And surely Tenshidajin and Sho Hachimangu will not forget you, while there is also the deity of Hiyoshi on whom you rely, and who will surely vouchsafe his sure protection." The oft-read 8 books of the Hawk Sutra will guard you, and then once more the rule will return into your imperial power, and all the offenders will vanish away like foam on the water. The Ho-Oh, on hearing these words, was somewhat comforted. The emperor was much grieved at the exile of his Kwampaku and the loss of so many of his high officials. But when he heard of the banishment of the Ho-Oh to the Toba Palace, he would take no food, and becoming sick, he entered his august sleeping apartment and would not come forth. The ladies in waiting and the imperial consorts were at their wits' end to know what to do. After the Ho-Oh had gone to the Toba Palace, special worship was held in the imperial palace. A dais of Mo-R, 461 p. 158. Tar was made in the Sarioden where the emperor worshipped Issei, no, Daijingu every night. These prayers were offered for the Ho-Oh. The retired Emperor Nijo was a wise ruler, but since in his opinion an Emperor 47I has neither father nor mother, he was always opposing the Ho-Oh and did not carry on the imperial line successfully. Therefore his son, the retired Emperor Rokujo, after having ascended the throne, unfortunately died on the 14th day of the 7th month of the 3rd year of Anjin at the age of 13. Chapter XVI. The Esseian Detached Palace. In 100 volumes, we find the saying, "Filial piety is the most important thing." A wise monarch governs the empire by filial piety. Therefore, we see that Tokyo revered his old and feeble mother, and Gushan respected his obstinate father. It is very blessed when the imperial will follows the example of such wise and pious rulers. About this time, the emperor secretly sent this message to the Ho-Oh at the Tosa Palace. In such an age, even though one live in the palace, what can one do? Perhaps it is best to retire into the mountains and become a recluse, as was done by Yuta Tenno in the era of Kwampei and by Kwazan Tenno in former times. To this, the Ho-Oh replied, "Do not think of such a thing. If you remain as you are, it is one source of reliance for me, but if you depart from the palace, on what can I rely? At any rate, wait and see what my fate will be." The emperor, on receiving this letter, pressed it to his face and wept unrestrainedly. As the sages have said, the emperor is the ship 481, the subjects are the water. The water may make the ship float well, or again the water may overturn the ship. The subjects may protect the emperor, or again the subjects may overthrow the emperor. In Hojin and Heiji, the lay priest-chancellor protected the emperor, but now in Anjin and Jisho, he sets him at naught, just as the classic says. The Grand Chancellor Amiya all, the Neidejin Sanjo call, the Dainegen Hamuro kill, and the Chunegen Nakyama Estuel were all dead, and Sarai El and Shinhanj only were left. But these two, thinking it was no use remaining at court in such an age, even if they became Dainegen, retired from the world and became monks while still young. Mimbu, no. Kaio Nudo Shinhan having the hoar frosts of Ohara for company, and Seisho Nudo Sarai living among the mists of Koya. Both had no thought for anything but attaining enlightenment in the next existence. In ancient days in China too, there were men who hid themselves in the clouds of Shazan LSSL and cleansed their hearts under the moon of Eisen LSSL. So what wonder was it that these deeply learned and pure-minded men should forsake so troublesome a world? When the Seisho Nudo, among the recesses of MT, Koya heard that the emperor also wished to retire from the world, he exclaimed, "Ah, well it was that I have so soon become a recluse. For though to hear of it while here in seclusion is evil enough, how great a grief would it have been to have heard it while in attendance on his majesty." The revolts of Hojin and Heiji were indeed evil, but now the age has become more degenerate, and such extraordinary things as this have come to pass. What will happen to the empire in future, no one can tell. Would that I could ascend above the clouds, or hide myself deep in the farthest mountains. Verily, it could not be considered a world in which anyone with any sense would live. On the 21st day, the Tendai Zashu Kakakwai, Ho Shino, realized his oft-expressed wish and retired, the former Zashu Mei Undai Sojo being reinstated in his place. The lay priest-chancellor, though he had thus recklessly overturned and scattered everything, seeing that his daughter was the Chugu and his soil-in-law the Kwampaku, now felt quite easy in his mind about everything, and went off to Fukuhara declaring that the administration was entirely according to the wishes of the emperor. On the 23rd day, the former Yudaisho Munenori, no, Kaio hastened to the palace and reported thus to the emperor, whereupon his majesty said, "If I had received authority from the Ho, according to custom I might do something, but as things are, do you take counsel with the Kwampaku and do as you like about the administration." And he paid no further attention to the matter. Now the winter was half over and the Ho was in the Seinen detached palace. The wind of Yazan El Sil sounded shrilly, and the moon shone bright on the frozen garden. The snow fell and piled up on the courtyard, but no one footsteps were seen upon it. The ice thickened on the ponds, but no flocks of birds resorted thither. The boom of the bell of the great temple resounded in his ears like that of Eijk SL in China. The white snow on the western hills reminded him of the scene of the Peak of Koro. In the cold, frosty evening, the clink of the fuller mallet was borne faintly to his pillow, while at dawn, he was awakened by the slow wheels creaking on the ice outside the gate. The travelers passing along the highway, the sight of the galloping war horses, the pomp and movement of this fleeting world, how vain it seems to one who understands. The guards before the P. 161 palace gates who kept watch day and night. By what connection in a former existence was it that they were now brought into this relation with him? What an awe-inspiring thought it was. Thus on every side the Ho found things that gave him pain. So during his exile here he could not help occupying his thoughts with the memory of the various excursions and pilgrimages and festivals he had enjoyed, and the recollection of them would bring tears to his eyes. And so things went on, and the 4th year of Jisho began. Tale of the Heike Monogatari, Volume 4. Volume 4. Chapter 1. Imperial Progress to Itsuki Chime. At the beginning of the new year of Jisho, since Kiyomori would not give his permission and the Ho feared to gainsay him, the usual visits of ceremony were not made at the Toba Palace during the first 3 days, with the exception of Sakuramachi Chunagan Shijinori, no Kaio, son of the late Shonagan Nudo Shinsei, and his younger brother Sakyo, no Deiyu Naganori, who were allowed to go. On the 20th day were held the ceremonies of the first investiture of the crown prince with the hakama and the first serving of fish to him. It was a very auspicious occasion, but the Ho only heard about it by rumor in the Toba Palace. On the 21st day of the 2nd month, the emperor, spite of his not having any particular illness, was removed from the throne and the crown prince succeeded him. This also showed how the Nudo did as he pleased in everything, and everyone excitedly chorused, "Now are the palmy days of the Hef, EK." The imperial gem and the sacred sword were taken to the Nejidakaro, and the court nobles all assembled at the camp of the imperial guard, everything being done according to ancient precedent, while the Sadijin also went out to the camp. On hearing of the resignation of the emperor, all those who understood the circumstances could not refrain from weeping. When an emperor in the retired palace meditates on having resigned the throne to the heir of his own accord, the future seems dark and wretched. But when as now his wishes are not consulted, but he is forced to resign, his state of mind must be truly pitiable. The sacred treasures were handed over and taken to the Gosho Palace, where the new emperor was to reside. When the call of the watchman who gave the fire alarm was heard no more in the palace of Takakura Tenno, and palace guards no longer kept watch and ward, but all was silent and still. Melancholy fell upon the older courtiers even amidst the rejoicings at the imperial accession, and they were affected even to tears. The new emperor was but 3 years old this year, and people whispered to each other, "Ah, he too will retire sometime." But as Taira Dainagan Takatata, no, Kaio was the husband of the imperial wet nurse, Satsu no Suk, who was there who could depose this one. In foreign countries we find Sei, O of Shu aged 3 years, and Haku Te of Shin aged 2. In our country Kano, In was 3 years old and Rokyujo. In 2, all of them in long clothes and none able to adjust his own dress, but carried in the arms of the Kwanpaku or nursed by their mother, they went through the accession ceremony. Afterwards Kosho, Emperor of Kan, succeeded to the throne at the age of 100 days. These are the precedents for ascending the throne both in China and Japan, but the learned men of the time grumbled together saying, "Ah, how terrible." Since the crown prince had come to the throne the Nudo, and his wife were now grandfather and grandfather to the emperor. And having obtained an imperial decree for the 3 ranks of empress, dowager empress and grand dowager empress, he distributed rank and emolument, received and directed the ministers in attendance, had ladies in waiting dressed in flower-embroidered robes, and in fact deported himself exactly like a retired emperor. With the exception of the Nudo of Hokkien, Kaneko, this was the first time that one who had become a priest had received the decree of the 3 ranks. During the first decade of the first month, the Emperor Takakura made a pilgrimage to Itsukushima. As it is the custom for an emperor who has relinquished the throne first of all to visit Hachiman, Kamo, and Kasuga before going elsewhere, people thought it very strange that His Majesty should go to the far distant shrine of Itsukushima. Some say that the retired Emperor Shirakawa went to Kumano, and that Shirakawa went to Hiyoshi, but I know not. The reason that the emperor went to Itsukushima was because he had an important petition to make there, and moreover as it was the shrine most highly venerated by the Ek. On the one hand he would comply with their wishes, while on the other there was the example of the Ho-Oh shut up in the Toba Palace before his eyes, so that no doubt he went to pray that the heart of the Nudo might be softened. Now this thing caused Heian to be angry, for they argued that if the emperor did not first visit Hachiman, Kamo, and Kasuga on his abdication, he certainly ought to come to their temples, and wondered why he should go to such a distant shrine as Itsukushima Inaki. "Let us go down to the capital with our sacred emblem and prevent it," they clamored. So the emperor postponed his visit for a while, until Kiyomori managed to pacify the indignation of Heian. Then on the 17th day, His Majesty started out on his pilgrimage to Itsukushima by visiting the Idono, the wife of the Nudo, at her residence at Hachijo Amiya. That night, the festival of the deity of Itsukushima began. The Kwampaku Matamichi presented a car of Chinese style, with changes of horses to the emperor. On the next day, being the 18th, His Majesty went to the mansion of the Nudo, and in the evening, summoning the former Yudaisho Munenori no Kaio, said to him, "On the occasion of my going to Itsukushima, I wish to go to the Toba Palace to visit the Ho. Oh, do you think I ought to inform the Nudo or not?" Munenori replying that he thought it did not matter. The emperor asked him to go that night to the Toba Palace and inform the Ho of his intention, and Munenori forthwith hastened thither. The Ho, on hearing the news, was highly delighted, thinking it too good to be true. So on the next day, p. 165, the 19th, Amiya no Dainagan Takasu no Kaio arrived while it was yet dark, and the imperial progress to Itsukushima was at last begun from the Nudo residence at Nishi Hachijo. The 3rd month was not yet half over, but the moon of the dawning day shone half obscured and beclouded in mist, and the cry of the wild geese flying back from Echizen and Echigo sounded melancholy in their ears. While it was yet dark, they approached the Toba Palace, and the emperor, descending from his car before the gate, entered to find only a deserted mansion in the shade of the thick trees. A dismal scene indeed. The spring was almost over, and the summer foliage was appearing. The cherry blossoms were fading on the boughs, and the song of the Yuguisu was growing old. His Majesty thought how he had visited the at his palace of Hajujiden on the 6th day of the first month of last year, when the musicians had greeted him with sweet refrains, while the nobles were all in waiting, and with the serried ranks of guards the own courtiers had opened the curtained gate, and the attendants of the Kamen spread matting on the ground, the whole ceremony going smoothly and without fault. Today it all seemed like a dream. Sakuramachi Chunagan Shijimori. No, Kaio now advanced and announced the imperial visit. The immediately came forth into the vestibule of his sleeping apartment to await his majesty. The emperor was 20 years old this year, and his countenance was bright like the moon of dawn. His figure also was very beautiful. He was exceedingly like his mother, the late Kenshin, Mon-in, and the being reminded of his departed consort, could not refrain from tears. Then the two retired emperors seated themselves close together, and so that their conversation might be private, the old nun alone remained in the imperial presence. So their majesties remained long in converse, until the sun rose high in the heavens, when the Emperor Takakura took leave of his imperial father and embarked in his ship at Kusatsu in Tuba. The emperor felt deeply grieved to p. 166. See the silent and lonely condition of the detached palace, and the on his part felt very uneasy when he thought of the imperial journey and the perilous voyage over the waves. Indeed, his majesty, putting aside the claims of the shrines of Ise, Hachiman, and Kamo, and making this pilgrimage to far off Aki was most praiseworthy. How can it be without acceptance before the gods? Doubtless, the august petition will be granted. Chapter 2. The Imperial Return Journey. On the 28th day of the same month, the emperor arrived at Itsukashima and was lodged in the mansion of the Neiji most beloved by the lay, priest-chancellor, spending the days there while the sutras were chanted and Bugaku dances were performed. At the consummation of the vow, the Hierophant Kojin Sojo, ascending the high seat, beat on a gong and cried out the words of introduction in a loud voice thus: "How awe-inspiring is the will of our Lord, leaving the 9-gated palace to brave the 8-fold sea road to this distant shore." And both the emperor and all his subjects shed tears of joy. Then they went round worshipping at all the shrines in succession, beginning with the great shrine of Amida, Fujin and Mirokudj, and the lesser one of Tamont and Jill. Going round the mountain 5, from the great shrine they went to the water, fall shrine of Nyo, Rin-Kwanan. Then Koken Sojo fastened to the pillar of the Hayden the following verse: "As with the snow-white cord of the cascade that falleth from heaven, so does his majesty here bind his appeal to the god." p. 167. The shrine official Seiki, no Kagehiro, was promoted to the lower 5th rank, and the Kokushi Fujiwara, no Aritsuna, to the lower 4th, and at the same time permitted to attend the court of the retired emperor. The Zashu Sonai was made Hojin. Thus it was hoped that by the favor of the god, the anger of the Nudo would be calmed. On the 29th day, the ship was again made ready, and his majesty started on his homeward journey. But as the wind and the waves rose somewhat, they rowed the ship back again and stopped that day at a place called Yura in Itsukashima. Then the emperor ordered someone to make a poem expressing his regret at parting from the Daimyojin, the god of the island, and Takafusa, Shosho composed the following: "Full of regret at parting, again we return to this haven. Surely these white waves are as a blessing divine. About midnight the wind dropped and the sea became calm, so they rowed away again." That day they reached the harbor of Shikina in Bingo. Here there was a mansion built in the period Oho by the Kokushi Fujiwara Taimnari to accommodate the when he had journeyed that way, and Kiyomori he had it repaired for the emperor use, but his majesty did not go there. This being the 1st of the month of the hare, the 4th month, it was the day of the ceremony of changing clothes at the court, and remembering this they all spoke of the affairs of the capital, and as they were singing snatches of song, they caught sight of a deep purple wisteria abloom on a pine branch on the cliff, and the emperor, noticing it, ordered someone to go and bring it to him. Thereupon Amiya, no Dainagan Takasu, no Kaio, respectfully receiving the command, bade Sashisho Nakaham, no Yasusada, who was rowing in a small boat in front of his majesty, break it off and bring it. When the emperor looked at the wisteria as it grew on the pine branch, he was much affected by p. 168 emotion and asked for a poem to be composed on it, when Takasu, no Kaio, made the following verse. Full 10 centuries long may the life of our Lord be extended, even as the Fuji flower clings to the evergreen pine. On the second day they reached Kajima in Bizen. On the 5th day the weather became clear and the sea calm, so they put forth again, the imperial vessel going first and the accompanying ships rowing after. Breasting the head seas that burst in foam like clouds and smoke, the same day they reached the port of Yamata in Harima, and from thence his majesty entered his palanquin and proceeded to Fukuhara. The 6th day was spent there in visiting various sites, and his majesty went and inspected the country seat of Ike, no Chunagan Yorimori at Arata. On the next day the emperor conferred promotions in rank on Kiyomori family, to wit, the Nudo adopted son Tamba, no Kamikyo Kuni, was given the upper 4th rank, lower grade, and his grandson Echizen, no Shosho, the lower 4th rank, upper grade. The same day they came to Tarai. On the 8th day, all the courtiers and nobles came to Toba to meet the emperor. On the return journey, his majesty did not go to visit the Ho-Oh at the Toba palace, but proceeded straight to the Nudo mansion at Nishi-Hachijo. On the 23rd day of the same month, the accession ceremony of the new emperor took place. It should have been held in the Daikyoku Den, but as it had been destroyed by fire a year ago, it was not yet rebuilt. Therefore, a council of courtiers was held, and it was suggested that it might be held in the Dajakuen, but Kyujo Dono said that the Dajakuen was only a place that might be called a record office in the case of an ordinary person house, and that it ought to be held in the Shishin Den. It was held therefore in the Shishin Den. Formerly, on the 11th month of the 4th year of Koho, the accession ceremony of Riaizai Inn was held in the Shishin Den because the emperor caught cold and could not go the Daikyoku Den. As in the case of Go-Sanjo, in Enkyu, people said that this accession ceremony ought to have been held in the Dajakuen, but no one could do anything in the face of the opinion of Kyujo Dono. It was called the accession of the crown prince. It is true, but it was the Empress Ken-Rei, Mon, in who went from the Koki Den to the Ninju Den and sat on the throne. All the Hesse-E-K family were present. Only the retainers of the late Komatsu Dono, who were in retirement owing to the death of their lord the year before, did not appear. Chapter 3. Gathering of the Jinyu. Now Kurando, no, Seaman, no, Ganasuk Sadanaga wrote his congratulations on the accession ceremony having been completed without any untoward circumstance, on 10 sheets of paper, and sent it to Hachijo Nai, Idono, the wife of the Nudo, who rejoiced greatly with her face wreathed in smiles. Still, though it was a very brilliant and auspicious occasion, most people were far from being pleased. Now the second son of the Ho-Oh, Prince Machihito, whose mother was the daughter of Kaga Dainagan Tsunari, no Kaio, was living at the Takakura Palace in Sanjo, and so came to be known as Prince Takakura. His Gempuku ceremony had been held secretly when he was 15 years old, on the 15th day of the 11th month of the 1st year of Man, at the Amiya Palace at Kano Kawara. He was known for the elegance of his calligraphy and his brilliant intellect, and might have been crown prince and ascended the throne, but owing to the enmity of the late Ken Shun, MNN, he had to live thus secluded. In springtime, he would divert himself by writing poems as he strolled out under the cherry trees, and in autumn by making exquisite melodies on his flute at the moon viewing banquets. Does your highness not think it a very miserable thing that you, who are of direct descent in the 48th age from Tensho Daijin, and the 8th generation from Jimmu Tenno, and might become crown prince and ascend the throne, should thus live till the age of 30 in obscurity in this palace. Quickly raise a revolt and overthrow the Heth. Kale, will it not be a most worthy and filial act to relieve the anxiety of the retired emperor, repining at his perpetual confinement in the Toba Palace, and to ascend the throne yourself as emperor? If your highness should deign to consider this plan, and issue a royal order for its execution, all the many members of the Genji family who are living in the various provinces will gladly flock to your side. In Kyoto, he continued, are the son of Duano Zenji Mitsunabu, Iga no Kami Mitsumoto, Dua no Hangwin Mitsunaga, Dua no Kurando Mitsushige, and Dua no Kwanya Mitsuyoshi. In Kumano, Juro Yashimori, youngest son of the late Rokujo Hangwin Tameyoshi, is in hiding. In Setsu there is Tada no Kurando Yukitsuna, but as he betrayed his allegiance after having taken part in the plot of the Shin Dainagan Narichika, no Kaio, he is not to be relied on, but his younger brother Tada no Jiro Tamazane, together with Teshima, no Kwanya Takyori, and Oda no Taro Yorimoto will certainly come. In Kawachi are Musashi, no Goro no Kami Nudo Yashimoto, governor of the district of Ishikawa, and his son Ishikawa, no Hangwin Dai Yashikane. In Yamato, the sons of Uno no Shikairu Chikaharu, Taro Ariharu, Jiro Kiyoharu, Saburo Nariharu, and Shiro Yashiharu. In Omi, Yamamoto, Kashiwagi, and Nishigori. In Mino and Owari, Yamada no Jiro Shijihiro, Kawabe no Taro Shijno, Izumi no Taro Shigemitsu, Urano no Shiro Shijito, Ajiki no Jiro Shijori and his son Taro Shijisuke, Kaido no Saburo Shijnaga, Kaiden no Hangwin Dai Shijikuni, Yashima no Senjo Shijitaka and his son Taro Shijuki. In Kai Hemi no Kwanya Yashikyo, and his son Taro Kiyomitsu, Taikeda no Taro Nabayoshi, Kaganu no Jiro Tamitsu, and Kajiro Negamitsu of the same house. Ikijo no Jiro Tadjori, Itagaki no Saburo Kainabu, Hemi no Goi Ariyoshi, Taikeda no Goro Nabumitsu, and Yasuda no Saburo Yashisada. In Shinano, Aoche no Taro Koryoshi, Okada no Kwanya Chikyoshi, Hiraga no Kwanya Moriyoshi and his son Jiro Yashinabu, Kaizo no Kanya Yashinaka, second son of the late Tatewaki no Senjo Yashikata. In Izu, the former Ahioi no Suke Yoritomo in exile. In Hitachi, Shida no Saburo Senjo Yashinori, Sadake no Kwanya Masayoshi and his sons Taro Tadayoshi, Saburo Yashimune, Shiro Takeyoshi, and Goro Yashisu. In Mutsu, Kuro Hangwin Yashitsune, youngest son of the late Sama no Kami Yashitomo. All these are descendants of the 6th imperial grandson and the posterity of Tada no Shinpachi Mitsunaka. The two warrior families of Gen and Hai, whose only duty is to quell the enemies of the throne, have till now been equal in power, but at the present time they are wide asunder as heaven and earth. Indeed, it is not too much to say that their relations are those of servant and master. The provinces are oppressed by the governors, and the fiefs are abused by the commissioners. People are harried in all matters, and there is no peace. Consider carefully the state of things at present. Outwardly all submit, but inwardly there are none who do not dislike the Hef rule. If therefore your highness will agree to issue an order, the Genji from every province will pour in night and day, and the destruction of the Hef will soon be completed. In that case, though I myself am an old man, I have many young sons and will bring them to fight against the Hef The prince was greatly perplexed to know what to do, so that for some time he did not consent. There was, however, a certain Shanagan Kornaga, grandson of Akko Maru Dainagan Munamichi, no Kaio, and son of Bingo no Zenji Sumichi, who was famous for his skill in physiognomy, so that people called him Physiognomy Shanagan, and he came and visited the prince, and told him that by his features he was predestined to ascend the throne, and that therefore he ought not to abandon the attempt to attain his object. Gensami Nudo also kept on urging him, and suggesting that the plan was an inspiration of Tensho Daijin herself, so that at last he made up his mind to act, calling Shingu no Jiro Yashimori, he appointed him curando, and changing his name to Yuki, sent him as bearer of his royal order to the eastern country. On the 28th day of the 4th month, he left Kyoto and went first to Omi, and then to Mino and Oiri to rouse the Genji residing there. On the 18th day of the 5th month, arriving at Hokujo-huru, Gakajima, he communicated his message to the former Ahioi, no, Sukdono, who was in exile there. After which he went to the island of Shinda to his brother Shinda, no, Saburo Yashimori, and then crossed over to the highlands of Kaizo to warn his nephew Kasono Kwanya Yashinaka. Now Tanso, the Beto of Kumano, somehow or other had got to know of the matter, and he was an official under great obligations to the Heth, E.K. So Shingu no, Jiro Yashimori is out with a royal order from Prince Takakura to raise a revolt, said he. Then Nacha and Shingu are sure to take the side of the Genji. How can I, who have received such great benefits from the Heth, E.K., forsake them at such a time? I must surely draw bow in their defense before hastening to Kyoto to give all information. Whereupon he marched against Shingu with 1,000 men fully armed. At Shingu were Torii no Hojin, Takabo no Hojin, and their samurai Ui, Suzuki, Mizuya, and Kamenoko, and at Nachai Shujio Hojin and his men, their whole force together numbering about 1,500 men. Shouting their warcry, both Genji and Heth, E.K. drew their bows and the battle began. For 3 days it raged furiously, the arrows whizzing without cessation, and the humming arrows continuing their whirring, until at last Tanso, when most of his own retainers had been killed and himself wounded, barely escaped with his life and fled back lamenting to his shrine. Chapter 4. The Oracle of the Weasels. Now the Ho-Oh was apprehensive lest he should share the fate of Narachika and Shunquin and be banished to some distant province or remote island. But this did not come to pass, and the 4th year of Jisho found him still confined in the Toba Palace. Thus it happened that on the 12th day of the 5th month of that year, at the hour of the horse, 12 noon, many weasels made a great noise by running about the palace, and the Ho-Oh, wishing to consult a diviner about it, called Omi no Kami Nakakane, who was then entitled Tsuru no Curando, and ordered him to go to Abe no Yasuchika and ask him, after due consideration of the portent, to send a pronouncement on it. Nakakane, respectfully assenting, went to the residence of Yasuchika, but it happened that he was away at that time, and being informed that he was at Shirakawa, he proceeded thither and gave him the message of the Ho-Oh, whereupon Yasuchika, after a short time, handed him the pronouncement he desired. Nakakane immediately hastened with it to the Toba Palace, but when he came to enter the gate, the guards on duty there would not admit him. As he knew the buildings very well, however, he climbed over the wall and then, creeping under the floor of the palace, managed to insert Yasuchika prognostication through a loose board in the Ho-Oh room. On the 13th day, owing to the continued petitions that the former Yudeisho Monomori no Kaio made on behalf of the Ho-Oh, the Nudo at last relented and ordered that His Majesty should be brought back to Kyoto from the Toba Palace and lodged in the palace of Baifuku, Mon, in at Hachijo Karasu Maru, the cause of rejoicing that Yasuchika predicted within 3 days. Now just at this time, Tanso, the Beto of Kumano, sent a courier to Kyoto with the report of the rebellion of Prince Takakura, and Monomori was thrown into great consternation thereat. The Nudo was at his residence at Fukuhara, and when the news was sent to him, he flew into a great rage and ordered Prince Takakura to be immediately arrested and banished to Tosa. The carrying out of this order was entrusted to Nijo, no Dainagan Sanefusa, with 2 no Ben Mitsumasa under him, the samurai under them being Genju, no Hangwin Kanetsuna, and Dua, no Hangwin Mitsunaga, with 300 fully armed men, and these proceeded at once to the Takakura Palace. This Gendayu Hangwin was the second son of Gensami Nudo, and the fact that he was included proved that the Hef, E.K. did not yet know that his father was implicated in the plot. Chapter 5. The Fight of Enobutiasure. Now on the 15th evening of the 5th month, as Prince Takakura was gazing at the beauties of the moon in a cloudy sky, with no thought of anything that might happen, a messenger came post, haste from Gensemi Nudo with a letter, which his foster brother Rokujo, no, Suk, no, Deyu Munanabu at once brought to him. It ran thus: "The plot is already revealed, and you are to be banished to Tosa. The officials of the Kebiishi have orders to take you, so leave the palace quickly and go to Midora." This counsel seemed good, so the prince let his hair loose, donned a female costume, and put on his head a wide straw hat such as the townswomen wear, while Rokujo, no, Suk, no, Deyu Munanabu went with him to carry his umbrella, and a youth named Tsuru Maru accompanied them, carrying some articles in a bag on his head, thus imitating the appearance of a young retainer escorting his mistress. They slipped out of the palace toward the north. Coming to a rather wide ditch, the prince leaped across it so lightly that some passers-by remarked to one another, "How strange to see a woman jump a ditch like that." This made the fugitives quicken their pace and hurry on quickly, fearing to attract more notice. They left Johaste Nobutsura behind as warden of the palace, and he at once proceeded to hide the few women of the establishment who remained, and to put away everything unseemly that there might be, when he happened to notice his master much prized flute called Koda, that the prince had forgotten in his hurry and left it by his pillow in his own apartment, a treasure that he would wish to recover even if he had to come back for it. "Ah," exclaimed Nobutsura, "what a pity. It is my master's favorite flute." And running after them, he came up with them within 5 cho. The prince, overjoyed at having it again, exclaimed, "When I die, see that you put this flute in my coffin," and then added, "Pray come along with us now." But Nobutsura replied, "When the officials come to the palace, they must not find it abandoned. Moreover, everyone knows that I am in the palace, and if they did not find me there tonight, they would know that you had just now escaped, and that must not be. A samurai must live up to his reputation, even in the smallest matters. So I will go back and deceive the officials, then I will eat my way out through them and rejoin my master." So he returned alone. That night be girded on under a light blue karajinu, a body armor, or haramaki of bright green color that grew fainter towards the bottom, and an efutakai. And then, opening the great gate of the palace that fronted on Sanjo and the smaller one that fronted on Takakura, he awaited the EK officers. As he expected, about the hour of the rat, 12 p.m. Gendu no Hangwen P. 176, Kanetsuna and Diva, no, Hangwen Mitsunaga, with about 300 men, came riding up to the gate. Gendu no Hangwen, knowing the circumstances, stayed outside the gate, but Duano Hangwen rode through the gate and stopped in the courtyard, crying out with a loud voice, "The prince's plot is already known. By order of the Bedo of the Kebiishi, we have now come to send him into exile to Tosa. I pray you come forth." Then Nobutsura, standing above on the floor of the palace, replied, "His Highness is not here. He has gone to visit some shrine." "What is all this? Pray give a fuller explanation." "Why is he not here?" replied Duano Hangwen, "and where has he gone?" "Here men enter and search the palace." "Hoi," returned Nobutsuna, "what rudeness is this of an insolent official? To enter the gate on horseback is strange conduct indeed, but to order your men to search the palace as well, what do you call such behavior?" "I am Choyoi, no Johaste Nobutsura." "Come on at your peril." Then a strong and brave man named Kanatake, unsheathing his sword, glared at Nobutsuna and sprang up onto the floor of the palace, seeing which 14 or 15 of his companions followed him. Then Nobutsura, stripping off his karajinu, drew his sword, which, though but a light ifu takehil, was a blade of fine make and temper, and flourished it. His opponent carried a huge blade and a great halberd, but Nobutsura at once cut him down with his slender weapon, so that he fell suddenly back into the courtyard, as a leaf is blown down by a puff of wind. It was the 15th evening of the 5th month, and the moon shone out brightly in the rifts of the clouds. The palace buildings were quite unknown to the Heike soldiers, whereas Nabotsura knew every inch of them, so he struck them down at his pleasure, now springing out onto the veranda to cleave one through, now driving another into a recess to cut him down, punctuating his blows with the fierce shouts of the swordsmen. "How dare you treat thus the bearers of an official order?" exclaimed one of the intruders. "Who talks of official orders?" returned Nabotsura, springing back and setting his bent sword under his foot to straighten it, after which he again slew some 15 or 16 stout men at arms in the courtyard. But 3 inches had now been broken off his sword, so throwing it away, he felt for his dirk to cut open his belly. His dirk, however, had fallen from his belt in the fight, so opening the front gate he made to flee from the postern fronting on Takakura. One of the Heike warriors, however, sprang forward to intercept him with a huge halberd. Nabotsura attempted to jump over it, but missing his leap, the halberd caught between his legs so that he fell to the ground, when, bold as he was overpowered by the weight of numbers and secured alive. Then bursting in, they searched the palace, but finding that the prince had escaped, they bound Nabotsura and took him away to Rokuhara. Their Monomori no Kaio, standing on the veranda, had him brought into the courtyard beneath and passed sentence. "Because you have attacked the officials of the Kebeishi and paid no heed to a government order, and moreover have killed and wounded many of our men, you shall be tortured until you give full information, and then taken away to the river bed and beheaded." Then that bold and fearless warrior Nabotsura stood erect and laughed in Monomori face. "And attacked them at once. And if I had been in full armor and had a good heavy sword, not one of these precious officials should have 178 come back here alive. Moreover, when the prince my master will return I do not know, and if I knew, a samurai does not reveal what he has once determined to conceal, whatever torture he may be made to suffer." When he had finished speaking, all the Heike men at arms who were ranged round him exclaimed, "Ah, a stout fellow indeed. Truly he is a match for 1,000. And as they were discussing him, one said, "This is not the first famous combat he has fought. Last year at a certain place, he pursued 6 robbers single-handed, whom the palace guard could not arrest, and slew 4 of them at Nijo Horikawa, taking the other 2 alive. And it was for this bold deed that he was made Choyoi no Jo. What a pity to put such a man to death. As therefore they were loath to do him to death, whatever the Nudo might think, they spared his life, and he was banished to Hino in the land of Hoki. Afterwards, when the Heike had been overthrown and the Genji had come to their own, he went down to the eastern country, and on his relating the whole affair to Kajiwara Heizo Kagetoki, Yoritomo praised him highly and rewarded him with a fief in Nodo. Chapter 6. Tiekekure no Miya goes to Omen Jojai. Thus Prince Takakura, leaving Takakura on the north and Kano on the east, crossed the river Kamo and proceeded to enter Nayama. Formerly the Tenno of Kiyamihiram, when attacked by Prince Atomo, went to Yashiniyama in the guise of a woman, and this prince was now in just such a plight, fleeing far away through the trackless and unknown hills the whole night through. His feet, torn and bleeding through the unaccustomed toil, stained the sand like the dark maple leaves, and it must have seemed that the dew of the moist verdure was overwhelmed by his tears. Thus they reached Midora at morning light, and when the priests heard His Highness had come to seek refuge with them, to save, it might be, his fleeting life, they were exceeding respectfully overjoyed, and appointing the Ho-Rin in as his lodging, gave him food and clothing with due ceremony. Chapter 7. Kiou. On the next day, the 16th, when it was known that since Takakura had plotted a rebellion and had fled to Midora, there was no small commotion in the capital. Now perchance it may be wondered why this Gensami Nudo, who had been living quietly for a long time past, should suddenly start this revolt. The reason was the extraordinary things done by Monomori no Kaio. Therefore in this world people should very carefully consider how they inconsiderately say things that ought not to be said, or do things that ought not be done. For example, Izu no Kami Nakatsuna, the eldest of Gensami Nudo, had a famous horse called Kanashida that was renowned in the palace, and was the most peerless of chestnut steeds, and of its speed and gentle disposition none was ignorant. And Munamori no Kaio sent a messenger saying that he wished this horse to be sent to him, for he had a mind to inspect it. To which Izu no Kami answered that he had the horse indeed, but as he had ridden it much lately, it was weary, and he sent it to the country to rest. This being the case, nothing could be done, but afterwards many of the Ek retainers spoke, saying, "Oh, that horse was there the day before yesterday. I saw it yesterday, or it was being ridden in the courtyard this morning." On hearing this, Munamori exclaimed, "Oh, he grudges it." Indeed. What hateful conduct here! And he sent his retainers with letters to demand it 5 or 6, or 7 or 8 times in 1 hour. When Gensami Nudo heard this, he said to his son, "Even if it were a golden horse, p. 180, if anyone desire it so much, one must not grudge him, so send it without delay to Rokuhara." Then Lzu no Kami, seeing that there was no other way, sent the horse to Rokuhara with this stanza: "How can one bear to part with a creature so dearly beloved? If it attracted you so, could you not visit one here?" Munamori did not answer this, but exclaimed, "Ah, it is indeed a fine horse, but as he was so loath to part with it, brand its master name on it." So they made a branding iron with Nakatsuna on it and branded the horse therewith. Then, when anyone came to visit him and asked to see the famous horse, he would call out, "Ho there! Put the saddle on Nakatsuna. Bring him out. Mount him. Whip him up," and so forth. When Izu no Kami heard of this, he was very angry and said, "His using his authority to take away a horse I valued as my life is no small thing. But how can one remain quiet when one is made a laughing stock in addition?" Gensam Nudo also exclaimed, "What is this that the Ek think to treat everyone with contumely and to do such folly? In that case, we must risk everything and watch for a suitable opportunity." He himself did not make the plot, but persuaded Prince Takakura to carry it out. This was learned afterwards. In this connection, people discreetly quoted a story of Komatsu Dono. Once when he had been to court, he went to visit the empress, when a snake of some 8 feet in length got inside the left leg of his hakama. Shijimori, thinking that if he made any fuss the court ladies would be terrified, and the empress too would be perturbed, gripping its tail with his left hand and its head with his right, put it into the sleeve of his naoshi, without making the least sign of confusion. Then, turning round, he called for an attendant of the 6th rank. Then Izuno, Kami Nakatsuna, who was then only Aifu, no Kurando, being called by name, came forward and was ordered to take the snake. p. 181. Taking it, he passed through the Yubaden and went forth into a small courtyard of the palace, where he beckoned to one of the younger attendants of the imperial storehouses to take it away. But the man, shaking his head, ran away. Then Izu no Kami, calling one of his own retainers, Kyu by name, gave it to him to throw away. Izu no Kami, on receiving it, made reply as follows: "In answer to the gracious gift of your excellency, I am delighted to accept it respectfully. Allow me to congratulate you on your feat of yesterday, which was indeed just like the Kenjo 6L dance." Inasmuch as the demeanor of Komatsu Dono was so considerate and courteous, Munamori appeared the more lacking, and moreover his coveting another favorite horse and seizing it thus brought great calamity on the country. So, on the evening of the 16th day of the same month, Gensami Nudo Yorimasa, with his eldest son Izu no Kami Nakatsuna, his second son Gendayu no Hangwin Kanatsuna, Rokujo no Kurando Nakya, his son Kurando Taro Nakamitsu, and 300 armed men, after firing their mansion, proceeded to Miura. Now there was a samurai of about the same age as Gensami Nudo named Watanabe no Jensen Kyu, a Takeguchi or palace guard, who, happening to come late, he was left behind, and summoned to Rokuhara in consequence. "Why is it," they inquired, "that you have not followed your ancestral Lord Gensami Nudo, but have stayed behind here?" Q respectfully made reply, "If it had been an ordinary affair, IP 182 would have been the first to ride forth and risk my life. But I do not know how this affair will turn out, and so I have hesitated to go." "You have some connection with us too," said Monomori. "So consider, in view of the past and future supremacy of our house, whether you will follow Yoramasa, the enemy of the throne, or take service with us." Q, bursting into tears, replied, "Spite of my relation to my lord, how can one agree with an enemy of the throne?" "I will then take service with you." "Do so then," replied Monomori, "and your recompense shall be no less than with Yoramasa." And Hirei entered the mansion. But that day from morning till night, Monomori, not quite reassured, kept on asking where Q was, and was always told that he was still in the mansion. When the evening came, Monomori once again appeared, and Q respectfully addressed him thus: "Since Gensami Nudo has gone to Midora, I think he will certainly try to attack us by night. He will have with him my clan, the Watanabe, and also the priests of Midora, and they are not enemies to be despised. So I pray you let me go and find him and slay him. If I had a good horse, I could easily get in by stealth, as I know them all." Monomori, thinking the plan a good one, straightway presented him with a valuable gray horse called Nanryo and a splendid saddle and trappings. Having received it, he immediately went to his own mansion and cried loudly, "Hoy, the night comes on. I go to Midora to die fighting before my lord Gensami Nudo." It was almost sunset when, having hidden his wife and children and set fire to his mansion, he set out for Midora. His heart was heavy as he rode off, but he made a gallant and glittering spectacle, clad in a brocaded karajinu profusely embroidered with chrysanthemums, and wearing a general armor of scarlet. Its name was Kaisnaga, and it had been a treasured heirloom for many generations. On his head was a helmet shining with silver stars, and a splendid sword hung at his side. In his quiver were 24 arrows barred with black on their white feathers, not to speak of the special arrow, feathered with a hawk wing, always carried by the imperial guard of the Takeguchi. His bow was a shite of black lacquer with red binding. He rode on Nanryo, while one of his retainers followed with a remount and another bore his shield under his arm. Now as soon as Rokuhara saw the flames go up from his mansion, they were greatly excited. "Hal," exclaimed Monomori, "that fellow has deceived us. After him and shoot him down before he gets farther." But Q was a warrior surpassed by few in strength and valor, and of great skill in archery, and he shouted to the pursuing samurai to come on at their peril, for with each of his 24 arrow he would account for one of them, whereat there was none found to engage him, and he proceeded on his way unharmed. Now at Midora, where the Watanabe clan was assembled, they were discussing him and saying to one another, "Verily it is greatly to be hoped that Q will not forsake us." When Gensami Nudo, who knew the mind of Q very intimately, replied, "Certainly he will not be taken alive or fail us. His feeling for me is exceeding deep. See, he will soon be with us." And even as he spoke, Q appeared. "Lo, it is even as I have said," exclaimed Yoramasa. Then Q, making his obeisance, handed over the horse he was riding. "See," he said, "I have brought Izu no Kami to know the famous Nanryo from Rokuhara in the place of Kaneshita that he lost." Izu no Kami, greatly rejoicing, immediately cut short its tail, and branding it also, sent it back to Rokuhara. At about midnight, it came back, and entering the stable began to eat with the other horses. Then the grooms of the stable exclaimed in astonishment, "See, Nanryo has come back again." Whereupon Monomori, hurrying out to see, perceived on its back the branded words, "Formerly Nanryo, now called Monomori Nudo." "Ah," he exclaimed in wrath, "if only I had cut off his head before he had time to fool me thus. When we attack Midora, see that this rascal Q is taken alive, and then I will have his head sawn off." But though he continued to pee. 184. Dance with rage, Nanryo tail grew no longer. Neither did the branded sentence grow less conspicuous. Chapter 8. The letter to Heian. Now at Miyadura, they rang the bell and blew the conch to summon the priests to council. Of late, when we consider the tendency of the time, the decline of the Buddhist law and the languishing of the monarchy are especially evident. If we do not now chastise the Nudo for his evil doings, when will another opportunity occur? Is it not through the protection of Hachiman and the help of Shinra, Daimyojinjal, that Prince Takakura has come hither? Shall it not be then that the hosts of heaven and earth will pour down their favor, and the power and might of the gods and Buddhas bend him to our will? Heian is a place where also the Tendai Shu is devoutly studied, while at Nara, the south capital, are many who are zealous in meditation and holy attainments. If then we send an appeal to them, surely they will join us in a league together. Thus they decided with one accord and sent an appeal to Heian and Nara. That to Heian ran as follows. Appeal of Onjoji to Enryakuji for operation to save us from destruction. Since the Nudo Jokai wishes to destroy Buddhism and overthrow the monarchy at his will, to our great grief the second son of the Ho fled secretly to our monastery on the 15th day of this month to escape persecution. And though we have been repeatedly bidden by a so-called imperial order to yield him up, yet we cannot consent. So we are threatened with the dispatch of an official army against us. Therefore the overthrow of our monastery is now imminent, and all our brethren are in great trouble. Now in Ryakuji and Onjoji, though their buildings are separate, yet both revere the one P. 185. Law of Tendeshu. Even as the two wings of a bird or as the two wheels of a cart they are to each other. So that if one be wanting, will not the other feel the loss? If therefore you will unite your strength with us, and save us from destruction, our former animosity will be forgotten, and we shall again dwell in good fellowship together. Given by us, the chief priests, at council held on the 8th day of the 5th month of the 4th year of Jisho. Chapter 9. The letter to the south capital. When the priests of Heian read the letter of Miyadura, they were astonished and said, "How is this? A temple that is tributary to us writes that we are as though two wings of a bird or the two wheels of a cartle. This is strange indeed." And they made no reply. Moreover, the lay priest-chancellor asked the Tendai Zashu Mei, Undai, Sojo to calm the priests of Heian, and he hastened to the monastery and succeeded in keeping them quiet. Thus he also intimated to the prince that his fate was yet uncertain. Beside this, by the order of the Nudo, 20,000 koku of omi rice and 3,000 bolts of silk of extra length from the north country were given to Heian for the right of passing over its highways. This was distributed among the monks of the various peaks and valleys, but as it was done hastily, there were some priests who received too much, while others went empty-handed. Whose doing it was I know not, but someone scrawled up this lampoon. The Yamahoshi gown is short, he cannot cover what he ought. The shame he feels his friends to bilk for Nudo Jokai scanty silk. While some who had got none at all wrote, "The shame on us may lightly sit, for we have not received a bit." P. 186. The letter that Miyadura sent to Nara ran as follows. A petition from Onjoji to Kofukuji to beg assistance that this monastery may not be destroyed. Know that the supreme excellence of Buddhism is to uphold the monarchy, and the duration of the throne, therefore, depends on the law of Buddha. Now the Nudo, the former Dajo Daijin, Taira no, Asan Kiyomori Ko, whose priestly name is Jokai, does his will with the authority of the country and turns the government upside down, so that there is everywhere resentment and lamentation. And on the evening of the 15th day of this month, the second son of the Ho-Oh hurriedly fled to our monastery to escape persecution, and though they have demanded repeatedly that we give him up, our priests unanimously refuse to do so. Therefore this lay priest is collecting an army to enter our monastery, wishing to destroy at one time both Buddhism and the monarchy. In ancient times in China, When the Emperor Bu, so in the era of Aisho, attempted to destroy Buddhism by force of arms, the monks of Joryusen joined battle and repulsed him. If they thus upheld their rights against the monarch, how much more shall we not chastise this great rebel, this transgressor of the first of the 8 disobediences 8L? Nara was the place where in unprecedented fashion, the guiltless Kwampaku was banished. If we do not act now, at what time shall we able to remove this reproach? Thus we pray you to lend us aid lest Buddhism be destroyed, and also that this evil revolt against the monarchy may be put away. If we are of one mind, we shall attain our object. Given at a council of the chief priests, 18th day of the 5th month of the 4th year of Jisho. Chapter 10. The reply from Nara. The monks of Nara, when they read this letter, also held a council, and after a while made answer as follows. P. 187. From Kafukuji to Anjoji, greeting. According to your communication, the Nyudo Jokai wishes to overthrow your temple and its holy law. Now, though divided into 2 branches, both our temples are derived from one pure source, the golden discourses of the Sutras of Tendai, Shu. Thus, both North and South capitals being equally disciples of the same Buddha, our temples together can surely overthrow even a mighty enemy of the faith, be he even as malign as Devadatalkal himself. Now Kiyomori is of the very dregs of the Heth, E.K., and but the off-scourings of the warrior caste. His grandfather Masamori was a retainer of a curando of the 5th rank and was at the service of the provincial governors of any fief. Long ago, when Okura, no, Kyotenfusa was governor of Kaga, he was employed by the Kebeishi, and when Shuri, no, Deyu Akisu was lord of Harima, he held the office of groom of the stables. When his son Tadamori, father of the Nyudo, was granted the privilege of attending court, he was universally regarded as an outsider of low birth, and though he thus became a courtier, people still despised him as an upstart. No courtier who valued his reputation would have cared to enter such a family. And his grandson and nephews raised to high office. In addition to this, he has appropriated all the fiefs that he desired, and appoints and dismisses governors at his pleasure, making them no better than his slaves and vassals. If anyone provokes his anger in the least, be he prince or noble, he is immediately p. 188 arrested, and if anyone speaks anything against him, be he courtier of the highest rank, he is put in bonds at once, so that in order to escape death or disgrace, even the sacred emperor is forced to flatter him, while those of the noblest lineage must make low obeisance. Even if his family property held for many generations is taken from him, none dare open his mouth for fear of worse happening, and if even the privileged estates of a prince are confiscated, for fear of the tyrant power he holds his pace. Presumptuous in his overweening strength, in the 11th month of last year, in the winter, he dared to attack the palace of the Ho-Oh and send the Kwampaku into exile. Verily, such a heinous crime has never been heard of from ancient days. At that time, we certainly should have set out against this rebel, but in accordance with the will of our deity, and as the result of consideration, we repressed our anger for a season. But now that, again raising an army, he has compassed about the palace of the 2nd imperial son of the Ho-Oh, the divine aid of Hachiman and Kasuga Daimyojin, overshadowing him with their bright radiance, has protected him and guided him to the protection of the Shinra Gonjin, thus clearly demonstrating that the monarchy can never be overthrown. Therefore, what men of discrimination are there who will not rejoice to hear that you are risking your lives to protect him? We, on our part, though dwelling so far away, feeling great pity at the news you secretly convey that Kiyomori is raising forces to attack you, assure you of our readiness to come to your assistance. On the 18th day at the hour of the dragon, after we had roused our monks and informed all the other temples, and called on the tributary temples to send their men, just as we had assembled our forces, you sent by a swift messenger an invitation to join you and in 1 hour dispelled the doubts of many days. If the monks of the monastery of Shoryo in China could drive off the soldiers of Bu-so, how much more can the monks of the north and south capitals of Yamato do away with the villainies of this minister? Do you therefore guard well the residence of the prince, and we, p. 189, will await your sign to advance. Consider our letter, and do not doubt us. Given on the 21st day of the 5th month of the 4th year of Jisho, Chapter XL, Assembling of the Monks. The monks of Miyadera, after receiving the prince within their temple, proceeded to fortify themselves by constructing walls round it, and then held another council, saying, Heizan will not act with us, and Nara has not yet come up. It will not do to continue thus. Let us go down and attack Rokuhara tonight. In that case, dividing our force into 2 parts, the veterans and the younger men, the elder must go down from mine against the back gate of Rokuhara, while they detach some swift runners to fire the dwelling houses of Shirakawa, so that the people of the capital and the soldiers of Rokuhara will run out in surprise to see what has happened. Then, when their attention is thus distracted, we must act on the defensive from the direction of Iwasaka and Sakuramoto, while the main force under the leadership of Kami, comprising the younger men and the fiercest fighting monks, must attack the front gate of Rokuhara from Matsusaka and set fire to the buildings from the windward side. Then in the melee and confusion of the onset, it ought not to be difficult to burn out the Dajo Nudo and take his head. At this point, a certain monk called Ikai Nyo, Bono Ajari Shinkai, who did priest services for the Heth, Ek, bringing about 10 others who lived with him, came forward into the courtyard where they were holding consultation and gave his opinion as follows. If you think of acting thus, one must think you are partisans of the Heth, Ek. A plan like that will not do at all. Surely, we must consider the reputation of our temple, as well as the interests of the priests. In former days, the families of Gen and Hai vied with each other in upholding the imperial family by their might. But of late, the fortunes of the Genji have declined, and the Heike have become supreme in the land, having now stood firm for 20 years like a tree that no gale can bend. How then can you hope to succeed in attacking their mansions with so trifling a force? Consider the matter very carefully. Is it not better to assemble a large force and proceed with the attack at a later time? And he continued to argue thus with them for a long time in order to delay the expedition. Then Joan, Bono Ajari Kyoshu, wearing under his robes a body armor of light green color and a great sword thrust through his girdle in front, and brandishing a white-handled halberd in his hand, burst into the council. There is no need of further argument, he exclaimed. The founder of our temple, Temu Tenno, while he was yet crown prince, being attacked by Prince Atomo, issuing from the mountains of Yashino, passed over the district of Yuta and making his way across Iga and Ise, with a band of only 17 men, being joined by the forces of Mino and Oeri, overthrew Prince Atomo and eventually ascended the throne. There is a saying that a man will have pity on a distressed bird that takes refuge in his bosom. So Gensemi Nudo Yorimasa took command of the elder monks who were to attack the back gate of Rokuhara, and with him Joan, Bono Ajari Kyoshu, Rissho, Bono Ajari Nishian, Satsu no Hoinzenji and his disciples Jiho and Zenio, with about 1,000 men holding torches in their hands, started off towards mine. All arms carrying bow and arrows, swords and halberds, every one of them worth 1,000 ordinary men, caring not whether they met God or devil. From Byodo in came Inabano, Rishikodyu Sumi no, Rokurobo Shima no Ajari, Tsutsui Hoshi, Kaio no, Ajari and Aku Shanagan. Kyu Takiguchi, Adi no Yumanojo, Suzuku Jenda, Kiyoshi and Suzumu with about 1,500 men at arms. These all set out from Miyadera, but after the prince had entered, they had made a rampart and moat and set up fences and palisades, and thrown obstacles of trees across the road. The moat had to be bridged and the obstacles removed, so that the night had passed and the cock crow of approaching dawn was heard before all was finished and the way was clear. "If it be now cock crow," exclaimed Izuno Kami, "it will be morning light when we reach Rokuhara." "What then is to be done?" Then Enman, in no Teiyu Genkaku, coming forward as before, said, "Of old King Sho of Shin put Mosho Kun into bonds, but he managed to escape with 3,000 soldiers by the help of one of the consorts of Sho. Coming to the barrier at Kan, however, he found that, as is the custom in foreign countries, the gate was not accustomed to be opened until cock crow. Now among the 3,000 soldiers of Mosho was one Denko, who was so skilled in imitating the crowing of cocks that he was nicknamed Keimei, cock, crow, and he, running to a high place, imitated the cock crow so well that all the cocks at the barrier hearing it at once crowed in concert. Then barrier guards, deceived by the sound, at once opened the gate and they passed through. So perhaps this cock, crow is only a ruse of the enemy. Let us then advance." But as he finished speaking, the dawn began to break mistily, for it was the time of the short days of the 5th month. Then Izuno Kami replied, "A night attack cannot be made now, and we dare not provoke a battle with them in broad day, so give the order to retire." So the attackers of the front gate retired from Matsusaka, and those of the back gate from Nai, Ga Mine. The young and turbulent priests, declaring that it was the fault of Ikai Nio, Bo, who had prolonged their consultations till daybreak, clamored for him to be put to death at once, and attacked and wounded him, and his disciples and followers who strove to defend him were all wounded also. He, wounded as he was, managed to crawl away and get to Rokuhara, though when they heard his tale there, since there were many tens of thousands of armed men assembled, they were by no means perturbed. Then the prince, seeing that Heian had turned against them, and Nara had not yet sent their men, since Miyadoro alone could do nothing, on the 23rd day of the same month left that temple and started for the southern capital. The prince had with him 2 flutes of Chinese bamboo called semiori and koda. Of these, semiori was made of a bamboo with joints like a living cicada, semi, which had been sent from China as a return gift when in the reign of Toba, in much gold dust had been sent as a present to the emperor of the Sung dynasty. Wondering how such a rare treasure could be well carved, it had been sent to Daisei, in no Sojo Kakuso of Midara, and placed on the altar while prayer was offered for 7 days, after which it was carved. On one occasion Takamatsu, no Chunegan Seinhira no, Kaio came to the temple and played on it, but forgetting it was no ordinary flute, he dropped it to the ground from his knees, and the flute, feeling the reproach, broke at the joint like a semi, so that ever after it was called semiori. As the prince excelled so greatly at flute playing, he had inherited it. But now, thinking that his end was nigh, he deposited it in the kondo hall before Miroku Bisatsu. How sad the thought that it was because he wished to seek the way of Miroku Bisatsu and forsake the world. The prince gave all the elder priests leave to stay behind, but the young and high-spirited monks went with him. The following of Gensemi Nudo, the clan Watanabe and the monks of Midara, made up in all a force of about 1,500 men. He is the son of Yamanouchi Sato Jayabu, no, Jo Toshimichi of the province of Soshu, who at the time of the fighting in Haiji served the late Sama, no, Kami Yashitomo, and was slain at Rokujo Kawara. Having some slight connection with him, I brought him up so that nothing that is in his heart is hidden from me. Take him therefore and let him serve you always. Then the prince, overcome by his feelings, could not refrain from tears and exclaimed, "What have I done that he should show me such great kindness?" Chapter 12. The fight at the bridge. Now the prince rode down to Rokutabi between Uji and Midara, and because he had no sleep the previous night, they tore up about 6 yards of the planking of the bridge at Uji, and he entered the temple of Byodo, in and rested there a while. The men of Rokuhara, learning that he was fleeing to Nara, at once started off in pursuit to take him and put him to death. Hioi Kagyo with about 28,000 men in all. Crossing over Kobatayama, they pressed on to the bridgehead of Uji. Perceiving that the enemy were at Byodo, they raised their warcry 3 times, when they were answered by that of the prince men. The vanguard, seeing the danger, raised a cry of alarm. "Take care, they have torn up the bridge." But the rearguard paid no heed and pushed them on with cries of "Advance! Advance!" So that some 200 horsemen of the leading company fell through into the river and perished in the stream. Then the warriors of both sides, taking their stand at each end of the bridge, began a duel of archery. And on the side of the prince, Oya no, Shuncho, Gachian no, Tajima, Watanabe no, Habuku, Sazuku, and Suzuku no, Genda shot so powerfully that their shafts pierced the enemy through both shield and armor. Gensemi Nudo Yorimasa, knowing in his heart that this fight would be his last, went forth in a suit of armor of blue and white spots worn over his long-sleeved court hitotare, purposely wearing no helmet on his head, while his son Izu, no, Kami Nakatsuno wore a suit of black armor over a hitotare of red brocade, he also leaving his head bare for greater ease in drawing the bow. Then Gachian no, Tajima, throwing away the sheath of his long halberd, strode forth alone onto the bridge, whereupon the E.K. straightway shot at him fast and furious. Tajima, not at all perturbed, ducking to avoid the higher ones and leaping up over those that flew low, cut through those that flew straight with his whirring halberd, so that even the enemy looked on in admiration. I am Tsutsui Jamyo Meishu, the priest, who is there in Midora who does not know me, a warrior worth 1,000 men. Come on, anyone who thinks himself someone, and we will see. And loosing off his 4 arrows like lightning flashes, he slew 12 of the E.K. soldiers and wounded 11 more. 1 arrow yet remained in his quiver, but, flinging away his bow, he stripped off his quiver and threw that after it, cast off his footgear, and springing barefoot onto the beams of the bridge, he strode across. All were afraid to cross over, but he walked the broken bridge as one who walks along the street Akijo or Nijo of the capital. With his naginata he mows down 5 of the enemy, but with the 6th the halberd snaps asunder in the midst, and flinging it away he draws his takai, wielding it in the zigzag style, the interlacing, cross, reversed dragonfly, water wheel, and 8 sides, at once styles of fencing, and cutting down 8 men. But as he brought down the 9th with an exceeding mighty blow on the helmet, the blade snapped at the hilt and fell splash into the water beneath. Then seizing his dirk, which was the only weapon he had left, he plied it as one in the death fury. Now a retainer of Joan, Bo no, Ajuri Kaioshu, Ikarai Hoshi by name, a man of great strength and courage, was fighting behind Jamyo. But as the beams were so narrow he could not come alongside him, so placing a hand on the neckpiece of his helmet, he shouted, "Pardon me, Jamyo, this is no good," and springing over his shoulder to the front fought mightily until he fell. Ikarai Hoshi being killed, Jamyo, Bo crawled back again and retired to the Byodo Inn, where he sat down on the grass before the gate, and stripping off his armor, counted the dints of the mows that had struck him. There were 63 in all, but of these only 5 had pierced through, and none of the wounds being very severe, he treated them with cautery. Then, covering his head and changing his clothes, using his broken bow as a staff, he went down on foot to Nara. Following the example of Jamyo, Bo, the soldier monks of Midora with the Watanabe clan of Gensami Nudo men vied with each other in pressing forward over the beams of the bridge, and fought till sundown, some returning with spoil, and some, after being wounded, cutting themselves open and jumping into the river. Then the commander of the samurai, Kazusa no Kamitada, Kyo, came to the commander-in-chief of the E.K. forces. "See here," he said, "the battle on the bridge is very fierce. We ought to ford the river, but after the rains of the 5th month neither man nor horse can live in the stream. Shall we go round by Yada, Morai, or Kawachichi?" "What is to be done?" Then Ashikaga, no Madatero Tadatsuna, a young man in his 18th year, spoke, saying, "Why not leave the samurai of India or China to go to Yodo, Morai, or Kawachichi, for that is not our way. If we do not rout the enemy that confront us here, the prince will get away to Nara. And then you will have all the forces of Yashino and Tatsugawa to deal with, and that will be no light affair. If we do not ford the river here, it will be a disgrace to our reputation as samurai. To be drowned is but to die. Forward then." And using their horses as a raft, they forded the river. As the samurai of the East Country say, "Keep your face to the enemy, and when separated by a river, shun the swift rapids by the bank." This river is neither more nor less swift and deep than the Tongawa, so come along, sirs. And he plunged into the stream. Ogo Amuro, Fukasu, Yamakami, Nawa no Tero, Sanuki, Hiritsuna, Shirideyu Anodra, no Zenjitero, Hayako no Shiro. And among the younger men Yubukata no Jiro, Kirifu no Rokuro, and Tanaka no. Soda immediately bed in after him with some 300 men behind them, shouting the Ashikaga war cry. Do not shoot while in the water. If the enemy shoots, do not draw bow in return. Keep your head down and your neck, piece well sloped upwards, but not too far or you will be shot in the crown of the helmet. Be light on the horse and firm against the stream. Do not go straight across, you will be washed away. Keep obliquely to the stream. Thus advising and encouraging them, he brought the whole 300 rapidly across without losing a man. Chapter XAI. The Fate of the Prince. I am Ashikaga Madatero Taketsuna, aged 17, son of Ashikaga, no, Tero Toshitsuna of Shimizuke, descended in the 10th generation from Tawara Toda, p. 198, Hidesato, the renowned warrior who gained great fame and reward for destroying Masakato, the enemy of the emperor. And though it may be at the risk of divine anger that one without rank or office should draw bow against a prince of the royal house, yet as I owe deep gratitude to the Heth, E.K. for many favors, here I stand to meet any on the side of Gensami Nudo who dares to face me. And he made an onset and fought his way within the gate of the Byodo Inn. Then the commander Sahioi, no, Kami Tamamori, seeing this, ordered his forces to cross over, and about 28,000 horsemen plunged into the river, so that the rapids of the Ujigawa were dammed and stayed by the mass of men and horses, and the foot soldiers crossing below the horsemen were hardly wetted above their knees. But everything is carried away by the natural force of water, so the men of Issei and Iga, to the number of 600 horsemen, were washed away through their ranks being broken by the force of the current, and their armor of various hues, green, scarlet, and red, rising and sinking as they were washed hither and thither in the stream, looked like the maple leaves on Kanabiyama, when in late autumn they are blown by the mountain blasts into the Tatsuda River and collect in masses where the flood is dammed. They were Kuroda no Gohei Shiro, Hino no Jiro, and Atobe no Yashichi, all men of Issei, and Hino no Jiro, a veteran soldier, wedging the butt of his bow into a cleft of the rock, scrambled out by its aid and then pulled out his two companions, thus saving their lives. Now when the whole force had reached the other side, they advanced and fought their way in through the gate of the Byodo Inn, and in the confusion the prince attempted to escape town. Nara, while Gensemi men the Watanabe and the warrior priests of Midara strove to hold back the foe with their bows and arrows. The veteran warrior Gensemi, now more than 70 years and 10, was soon wounded in the right elbow by an arrow and was about to retire within the temple to die calmly by his own hand, when a band of the enemy threw themselves in his way, whereupon his second son Genju, no, Hangwan Kanetsuna turned to counter them and let his father escape. His armor laced with Chinese silk was worn over hitatare of dark blue brocade, and he rode a cream-color horse with a saddle mounted in gold. Then Kazusa no Taro Hangwan shot an arrow that struck him beneath the helm, and as he staggered at the blow, Kazusa no Kami's son Jiro Maru, a strong and valiant fighter, clad in green armor with a helmet of 3 plates on his head, unsheathed his sword and sprang upon him. They both grappled immediately and fell together, when Genju Hangwan, who was a powerful man, gripped Jiromaru, pressed him down and cut off his head. But just then 14 or 15 of the Heth, E.K. horsemen came up, and Kanetsune was overpowered at last by numbers and slain. Izu no Kami Nakatsuna too, after fighting with reckless bravery, covered with wounds, retired to the Tsurudono of the Byodo, and there put an end to himself, his head being taken up by Shimikewebe no Tasaburo Kiyochika and thrown under the veranda. Rokujo no Kurando Nakya and his son Nakamitsu also fought valiantly until they were slain. This Nakya was the eldest son of the late Tatewaki Senjo Yashikata, and when father was killed, being an orphan, he was adopted by Jensam Minudo out of pity, and now, faithful to their long compact, they both died together. Jensami Nudo, calling Watanabe Chishichi Tano, bade him strike off his head, but he refused, overcome by the thought of cutting off his master head while alive, but offered to do so after he had committed suicide. Then Jensami Nudo, turning to the west, put his hands together and repeated the Nembutsu 10 times in a loud voice, after which he composed this sad stanza. Like a fossil tree from which we gather no flowers, sad has been my life, faded, no fruit to produce. And with these last words, he thrust the point of his sword into his belly, and bowing his face to the ground, pierced himself through and died. It was not a time when people usually make poems, but as he had been extremely fond of this pastime from his youth up, so even at the hour of death, he did not forget it. Chishichi Tano took his head, and fastening stones to it, sunk it in a deep part of the Ujigawa. Now though the K samurai had been strictly ordered to take the Takiguchi Kyu alive, yet he, after fighting with great bravery, being very severely wounded, at last cut himself open and died. Enmen no Teiyu Jinkaku, thinking that the prince had by this time got far away, gripping his sword in one hand and his halberd in the other, cleft his way through the midst of the foe and leaping into the river, without relinquishing any of his arms, dived beneath the water and emerged safely on the other side. Then ascending to a high place, he shouted with a loud voice, "Hoi how now, my lords of the Ek, see I have got thus far," after which he returned to Midora. Now Hida no Kamikaze, a veteran soldier, suspecting that the prince would certainly attempt to flee to Nara under cover of the fighting, rode hard on his track with 400 or 500 men in full armor, and as he expected, overtook him in front of the torii of Kamiazan with his escort of about 30 horsemen. As the arrows flew like rain, no one could tell whose it was, but one of the arrows of the Ek struck the prince in the side so that he fell from his horse, whereupon they killed him and cut off his head. Onisato, Aratosa, Kodyu, and Jayabuno Shunshu, who accompanied him, not wishing to live after their master, threw themselves upon the enemy and died fighting together. Among them his foster brother, Rokujo no Suk no Teiyu Mananabu, jumped into the pond at Niino, and hiding his face among the waterweed, lay there trembling. Soon after the Ek came riding back again to the number of 400 or 500 horsemen, laughing and shouting as they rode, and peeping out he could see in the midst of them a headless corpse in white clothing borne on a shutter. It was the prince without doubt, for in his girdle was the flute, Koda, which he had bidden them bury with him in the coffin if he died. He earnestly wished to rush out and throw himself on the body, but fear restrained him, and after the enemy had half passed by, he came out of the pond, and wringing out his wet garments returned weeping to the capital, where there was none who did not hold him in aversion. Now about 7,000 soldier priests of Nara in full armor had gone forth to meet the prince, and while the vanguard reached as far as Kazu, and the rear guard was still surging out of the southern gate of the Kafukuji, they heard that the prince had been slain before the torii of Kamiazan, a lassal but 50 cho distant from Kazu. So, unable to do any more, they halted, lamenting that they had not come up in time. Chapter XIV. The young prince becomes a monk. The Ek soldiers, sticking the heads of the followers of Prince Machihito and Jensami Nudo, the Watanabe and the monks of Midora, about 500 in all, on the points of their swords and halberds, returned to Rokuhara towards evening, flourishing them in the air and shouting exultantly. The head of Jensami himself could not be found, for it had been sunk in the waters of the Ujigawa by Chishichi Tano. But after searching hither and thither, all those of his sons were recovered. As to that of the prince, it could not be identified, since there was no one there sufficiently familiar with him to recognize it. The chief court physician Teniaku, no, Kami Sadanari, having been called to attend the prince when he was sick the year before, could have identified him, but illness prevented him from answering the summons. Then one of the prince's favorite consorts was sent for to Rokuhara, and as she had borne him several children and they were much attached to each other, she could not well make a mistake. Thus it was that, after only one glance, she buried her face in her sleeve and burst into tears, so that they knew that it was indeed the prince. Now this prince had many children by different consorts, and among them he had a son of 7 years old and a daughter of 5 by a lady called Sarnmi, no, Subon, daughter of Iyo Nakami Morinori, who was living with her children at the palace of the Princess Hachijo, no 9, and Kiyomori ordered his brother Ike, no, Chunegin Yorimori to tell her to send the little prince to him at once, though the daughter might remain. To this Hachijo, no, 9 replied that the child nurse had fled away with him in a panic that very morning, and he was nowhere to be found. On this being reported to Kiyomori, he ordered soldiers to be sent to the palace to search. Now the wife of Yorimori was a lady called Seisho Dono, the foster sister of this Hachijono 9, and they had been very friendly with each other, but it happened that shortly before this they had become somewhat estranged. Then the little prince said to the 9, "It seems that great trouble may befall you on my account, so pray send me back quickly." "Ah," exclaimed the 9 weeping, "how very sad it is that a child of 7 or 8 years who knows nothing of the world should be so affected by this calamity as to say such a thing. Alas, in vain have I brought him up this 6 or 7 years that this fate should now befall him." And she wept unrestrainedly. But as Norimori no Kaio kept on repeating his demand, at last, as nothing else could be done, she delivered him up. His mother Sami no Subon too was greatly grieved to think that she was parting from him forever. But, as it was inevitable, weeping bitterly she put on his clothes and parted and arranged his hair before sending him away, feeling the while like one in a dream, while all the household from the 9 to the ladies in waiting and the maidservants buried their faces in their sleeves and wept in concert. Then Monomori, no, Kaio sent a report of this sentence to Hashio no 9, and she made no objection but bade them do so, without delay. So the little prince retired from the world and entered the way of Buddha, becoming a disciple of the abbot of Ninnaji Fial. In after days he was known as Yasui, no Maya, no de Sojo Tasen, chief priest of the temple of Toji Fall in Kyoto. Prince Takakura had also another son in Nara, and he also was made monk by his guardian Sanuki, no Kami Shichide, who accompanied him to the North Country. But Kaizo Yashinaka, when he came down to the capital, had his priestly vows revoked and brought him with him to make him emperor, so that he was called the Kaizo Prince, or the Prince of the Revoked Vows. And also, because he lived at Yorino in the vicinity of Saga, he was known as the Prince of Yorino. In old times, there was a physiognomist named Tojo who prophesied that both Fujiwara Yorimichi and his younger brother Norimichi, who were Kampaku under 3 emperors, would live to the age of 80, and so it happened. Also that Satsu no Uche no Atodo Fujiwara Korchika had the face of one who would be exiled, and so it turned out. Moreover, Shotoku Teishi declared that the physiognomy of Shushan Tenno was that of one who would die a violent death, and he was killed by the minister Yumako. Though what the physiognomists predicted did not always come to pass, yet it seems that those in former ages were the more accurate. This because people said, "Has not the physiognomy Shonagon made a mistake?" At a later period too, though Kenmei Shino and Gyuhei Shino were both the sons of wise and pious emperors, yet they did not succeed to the throne, but still they made no rebellion. Also in the case of Tsukihito Shino, the 3rd son of the retired Emperor Go Sanjo, an exceedingly clever and distinguished prince, who was nominated by his father in his will to succeed him on the throne when the retired Emperor Shirakawa was only crown prince. And yet, On account of some decision of Shirakawa, he did not succeed. And the son of this Tsukihito Shino, taking the surname of Genji, rose from having no rank at all to the 3rd rank and became Chujo, being known as Sami Chujo. Except in the case of Yosei. In Dainagan Sadatnu, no Kaio, son of Saga Tenno, this is the first time that a member of the Genji family has thus risen from nothing to the 3rd rank. This was Hanazono, Sadijinara Hitoko. Now the priests who had made special prayer for the crushing of this rebellion of Prince Takakura were well rewarded for their pains. The Chamberlain Kiyamine, son of the former Udaisho Munamori, no Kaio, being raised to the 3rd rank at the age of 12 years. At the same age, his father Munamori had been only Hayoi, no Suk, and with the exception of the son of the Kampaku, there was no precedent for a boy of 12 holding such high rank. And the record of it ran, "These are rewards for the putting to death of Minamoto, no Machihito and Gensami Nudo Yorimasa and his sons." Not only were they impious enough to shoot a real son of the senior retired emperor, but they had the effrontery to describe him by the name of an ordinary subject. For this, Minamoto no Machihito meant Prince Takakura. Chapter XV. Ennui. Now this Gensemi Nudo Yorimasa was the 5th generation from Setsu, no Kami Reiko, the grandson of Mikawana Kami Yoritsuna and son of Hyogo, no Kami Nakamasa. At the time of the fight of Hojin, he was on the side of the imperial army, but received no reward. Also in the rebellion of Heiji, he forsook all his kinsmen and fought on the same side, but his recompense was small. So I go through the world as one who is picking up acorns. 11. Under the boughs of the oak, doomed not to rise any higher. Some time afterwards, he retired from the world and was known as Gensami Nudo Yorimasa, Minamoto 3rd rank, being 75 the same year. Among the many deeds of renown that Yorimasa performed in the course of his life, the most remarkable was in the Ninpei period, when the Emperor Kano-in was on the throne. Every night the emperor was frightened by something, and though he summoned the most celebrated of the priests and had them chant those sutras most potent for exorcism, it was all of no effect. The time that the emperor was thus troubled was about the hour of the ox, 2 a.m., when a black cloudy mass used to come up from the direction of the wood of Higashi Sanjo and hover over the palace, and it always affrighted him. So a council of courtiers was held about it. I am Minamoto Yashi, formerly Mutsu, no Kami, so that the hair of those that heard it stood on end, whereat the distress of his majesty was relieved. So according to this precedent, Yorimasa was chosen from among the warriors of the Taira and Minamoto families. He was at this time only Hayoi no Kami, and on being informed of it, he said, "From former times, samurai have been stationed at the palace to drive away rebels and to smite those who disobey the imperial commands, but it is the first time that I have ever heard of their having apparitions to deal with." But as it was an imperial order, he went. He took with him his most trusted retainer, Hayata of Totomi, who carried an arrow feathered with the underfeathers of an eagle wing, while he himself, wearing a double karajinu, carried his lacquered bow and 2 barbed arrows and proceeded to the veranda of the Shishinden. The reason for his taking 2 arrows was that one Masyori no Kaio, who was at that time Sashobin, had suggested that he be chosen to deal with the monster. And so Yorimasa had determined that if he failed to kill the creature with the 1 arrow, he would shoot the other straight at Masyori neck. After a while, as has been described, at the time when the emperor was always wont to be alarmed, a mass of black cloud came from the direction of the wood by Higashi Sanjo and floated over the top of the palace. Yorimasa, looking up, saw a strange shape in the midst of the cloud and, determining not to live if he missed, took an arrow and earnestly, repeating invocation to the god of war Namu Hachiman Dai, Bisatsu, drew the bow mightily and let fly. The arrow flew straight to the mark, and Yorimasa gave a loud shout of triumph as Hayata came running up, seized the thing as it fell, and pressing it down with might and main, pierced it through 9 tuns with his sword. Then many others ran up with torches, and when they came to inspect it, they found it was a most horrible monster with a monkey head, the body of a badger, the tail of a snake, and feet like a tiger, its voice being like a new bird. The emperor, out of his great gratitude to Yoramasa, presented him with a famous sword called Shishio, or Lion King. But Yoramasa, sticking out his right knee and spreading out his left sleeve, looked up at the crescent moon in the sky and replied, "Then let the bow-shaped moon let fly a shaft at the bird." Then he received the sword and retired. This Yoramasa, no Kaio, beside being a peerless warrior, was also a distinguished poet and much admired by his contemporaries. The bird they put into a boat and set it adrift. In the period Oho also, in the reign of Nijo, a monstrous bird called Nu was heard to cry in the palace, so that the heart of the emperor was troubled, and so as had been done before he summoned Yoramasa. It was the evening of the 20th day of the 5th month. The Nu only flew once over the palace, and its voice was not heard a second time. It was so dark that nothing could be seen, and therefore there was nowhere to aim. So Yoramasa took a great whirring arrow and shot it over the roof of the palace at the place where the cry had been heard. The Nu, alarmed at the sound of the arrow, sprang up into the sky, when Yoramasa, quickly seizing a smaller whirring arrow, let it fly. It struck and brought down the creature, whereupon all those in the palace came rushing out shouting confusedly. On this occasion, Yoramasa received a robe of honor from the emperor. This time it was Mikado no Yudejin Kinyoshi who received it to present to Yoramasa. "In ancient China," said he in admiration, "you shot a wild goose beyond the clouds, but now Yoramasa has shot a Nu in the rain. Famous the deed sight the dark in the rainy season of springtime." "Nay, at the time it seemed twilight had scarcely gone by," replied Yoramasa as he received the robe and retired. Then, having received the fief of Izu, he appointed his eldest son Nakatsuna as its governor, and having attained the 3rd rank was living at ease on his estates in Tamba and Wakasa, when he started this vain revolt and perished with the prince and his sons and grandsons. Chapter XVI. The burning of Amayadiare. The priests of Heian who had formerly behaved in a disorderly manner were now peaceful and quiet, whereas Nara and Midara, since they had received and lent their support to the prince, had put themselves in the position of enemies of the throne. Therefore it was resolved to proceed against both monasteries, but with the intention of attacking Midara first. Seihioi, no, Kami Tamamori with Satsuma, no, Kami as his lieutenant marched against the Onjoji with about 10,000 men. At the monastery about 1,000 soldier, monks, arming themselves, made a shield barrier, threw up a barricade of felled trees and awaited them. At the hour of the hare, 6 a.m., they began to draw their bows, and the battle continued the whole day, until when evening came on 300 of the monks and their men had fallen. Then the fight went on in the darkness, and the imperial forces forced their way into the monastery buildings and set them on fire. Not to speak of 7,000 volumes of the Holy Sutras, called the Issai Kyo Fijal, which Jido had brought from China, and 2,000 Buddhist statues were suddenly reduced to ashes. It seemed as if the 5 pleasures 14 eye of heaven had departed from the world, and the 3 hot torments 1 sea of the dragon were at their height. Now Midara had originally belonged to the governor of Omi, but afterwards became the chantry temple of Temu Tenno. The principal Buddha of this temple was that which this emperor himself specially worshipped, and which the Kyodai Kwasho I6L, said to be the living Miroku, who for 160 years worshipped it, had given over to Jido Daishi. This image is said to have come down to earth from the jewel palace of the Tashida heaven, the 4th of the 6 heavens of desire, and to here await the far-off time of the revelation of Miroku under the sacred dragon flower. Indeed, a most extraordinary matter. As the Daishi here established the 3 symbols of a well, flowers, and water, as holy memorials that it was a place efficacious in teaching and baptism. It was called Midara, Temple of the Three Wells. Such a holy place it was, and now it has come to nothing. In an instant, the law of Tendai and Shingon was destroyed. No trace is left of its stately buildings. The halls of the law are done away. The sound of the bell is heard no longer. The flowers of the summer preaching have vanished, and the splashing of the holy water sounds no more. The aged and virtuous teachers preach the law no longer, and the multitudes of disciples have forsaken their studies. The Lord Abbot Nkei Shino is dismissed from his office of Beto of Tennoji, and 13 other chief priests must vacate their posts, and all are committed to the custody of the Kebeishi, while 30 priests, including Tsutsui Jamyo Hoshi, are sent into exile. Such an upheaval and disorder in the empire was no ordinary matter, and all considered it a portent of the fall of the Heth, E.K. supremacy.